Liver. I still haven't figured out how to do the YouTube countdown.
Is there like a delay so that you can edit out our racial faux pas?
Yeah, that's what I've been doing all along. Nobody's heard all those.
Good.
Yeah, every single one of them was gone.
Ah,
That's
Remember
a
that
relief.
rant you did on those one types?
I mean, he had a point. They really do piss us off.
It was, but
the way they run the media.
yeah. Looks like Ward Radio's going live in 30 minutes. What do you think they're gonna?
I made it too specific. That was.
Oh man, they got a boring subject. I thought they were gonna go after the seeming fight that Kwaku and
Oh,
that
yeah.
Kwaku and Jacob Hansen are getting.
They have to bring it up, right?
I don't know. Maybe neither of them are on. I don't know. It says what's the subject? It says the cautionary tale of Church of Christ.
Oh, it's gonna be like a go woke, go broke thing.
I guess.
I wonder what is the cautionary tale. Like, I'm really genuinely curious.
They went woke. They went woke and going woke.
Kind of like,
yeah.
but like before they went woke, didn't they like basically give up on the Book of Mormon?
You know, it's funny because like for some reason I was in my head I was thinking like what went wrong for them like back in like 1840, and I didn't even think about like what wrong to them today. Like, because even I thought we were like talking about church stuff. I don't know what made me think that Ward Radio was interested in that crap.
So here's a question I've been trying to figure out. How do you know when something is so just stupid that you just dismiss it without even looking into it? Right? Because like I'm trying to figure out what the principle on that is, because I'm willing to hear most theories out on things, right? But like, and some are stupid enough that like it's just entertaining to listen to, like flat earth stuff, right? But then you get into, I don't like there's that lady, she seems really nice, but her whole podcast is talking about how Joseph Smith didn't do polygamy. Yeah. And that seems to be coming back up in the Mormon circles. There seems to be a lot more people online that are trying to prove that he didn't practice polygamy. And that's my reaction to it. Anytime like somebody dumps a bunch of like, oh, read these blogs and these, watch these videos, I'm like, I don't want to, because that's stupid. Because I even watched I was watching the Brian Hales thing he was on Steve Pinecker, and he's responding to that lady, and it's rare that I'm on Brian Hales' team because he's a dork, but like, he's like, well, I don't know what she's talking about. We have all of these people that said, oh yeah, the other night Joseph got a revelation on plural marriage. Like, she's trying to say that he didn't write D&C 132 and that Brigham Young did, but she's still like a faithful I don't get it.
It's weird. No, that's one of those where it's
because
like
I said that on something that Steve Pinecker posted. I was like, that's pretty, I'll hear out pretty much any theory, but it's really an uphill battle trying to convince me that Joseph Smith didn't practice polygamy. And then Rock Waterman replied to me and like just like, here's all these documents. And my first reaction in my head was like, fuck, I kind of asked for that, but God, I don't want to read any of this. Because I guess the other thing is that for me, it's like, if somebody showed me in my face right now irrefutable proof that he didn't practice polygamy, I'd be like, oh, okay. And I guess I just don't have a dog in it, right? Maybe that's why.
I listened to several of her podcasts and thought it was interesting enough. So, I mean, I guess I looked into it a little bit, but I honestly don't remember any hard details.
I think it's a preposterous position to hold.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how dumb does a thing have to be before you're like, I'm not looking into that?
Because I was just thinking, because I've been watching all these videos about the pyramids and stuff, like the latest of pyramid archaeology and stuff, and like there's fights about like, is it 4,000 years old or 4,500 years old? And like that's a big fight. Like, and that's a big fight. I'm like, well, I'm curious to hear that. But if somebody's like, it's an 18th century fraud, I'd be like, no, it's not. No, the pyramids are old. They're older than that, and it's like, and like if you want to talk about like, well, let's get into the nitty gritty about Joseph's polygamy. It's like, okay, that's an interesting topic. Like Joseph wasn't polygamous. Like, no. My great aunt and my great aunt were married to him, and like this was just a story I learned growing up. I didn't learn it from evil anti-Mormons or anything like that. Like it's just a fact of history.
I don't care very much anymore.
I know that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you showed me proof, I'd be like, okay, whatever.
It's one of those things like where it's like, because church history is obviously a big struggle for Mormons. There's no way it can't be,
Mhm.
And it's just like, because for me, where it's like, okay, if I assume that there is no God, then all of Mormon history makes perfect sense without any contradictions, questions. Like, okay, yeah, oh, all right, I know that story, right? If there's a God, then it becomes really difficult to understand, But it's like,
That
no,
Michelle
Joseph,
Sloan,
they
like,
were.
she really hold on to it though, because like she gets so emotional
She
and
does.
like cannot accept the church
Well,
unless it's just
I mean,
not true.
I understand it because I didn't like polygamy. That was, like nobody likes it. Like it feels gross when you learn about it. You're like, I don't know about that stuff. But so I understand, like, if these are your closely held beliefs, that you want to do anything you can to convince yourself. Nope. I don't know.
It's kind of wild though to see like all the apologists come at her and tell her she's up in the night though, because I mean I definitely was alive at a time when they were arguing the other side of that.
Yeah.
And now they're full in on like, no, we've circled that square and now we're for it and we're gonna fight you. Risa says top 3 Mormons you would want to be in the trenches with you during the war.
Like historical Mormons
or current, I don't know.
Like, and also in the trenches, like, are we looking for like good companionship or are we fighting a war here? Because like obviously Porter Rockwell, duh.
I just want who brings good food.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like the next guy because like
Browning.
Oh yeah, John Browning. Good idea.
Yeah, I want Browning.
And also I forget his name, but that guy from Price who dropped all the candy on the German kids after World War II. He was the guy he flew during the airlift, the Berlin airlift after World War II, and he was the candy bomber.
I don't know anything about him.
Oh, if you look him up, he's a famous Mormon. He died recently.
Oh, Hans Helmut. He's a cool one. He was like he was the youngest guy ever. He was the youngest kid ever executed by Hitler for going against the Nazis. He was a Mormon. He did get excommunicated for going against the Nazis, but his bishop was a Nazi.
I think Connor Boyack would be pretty hardcore.
So he's saying they have to be alive today.
I'm sharing the Gail Halverson screen. There he is. Colonel Gail Seymour, the candy bomber. That's grandfather for the Berlin candy bar. Uncle Wiggly Wings. See that you can't be Uncle Wiggly Wings anymore. Well, unless you're doing drag at Drag Queen Story Hour, and then you can be. We've gone circle again. We went through. It's okay to be an old man who hangs out with kids called Uncle Wiggly Wings. Too. That's not okay. Too. Now it's okay again.
Murdo asked.
Yeah, there you go.
Start an hour earlier. I would if I could. I'm always driving here from Park City, which is far away. I'm usually like coming in by the skin of my teeth to get here at 8, but don't know what works for you guys. But
Risto says Michelle Stone is his number 1.
Is she like all prepped stuff? I don't even know that much about what she does in her daily life. I know she's got like 75 kids.
She got 11 kids. She seems really nice and like well researched. That is just an absurd belief to hold. But I'm also like coming to the conclusion that there's not a whole lot of absurd beliefs that people can hold that will stop me from, befriending them. Because I think, I don't know, like if I could be friends with a flat earther, that doesn't bother me. It's a stupid belief.
Yeah, I only back off if they somehow
when a flat earther goes,
being whatever normal person is a Nazi or something. Then
I know.
When a flat earther goes to the store and buys a 12-pack of beer, it tastes exactly the same. Like it changes nothing in the taste.
Except they tricked you and they brought it up from their basement and it's 10 years old. But
it was the craziest thing. Like we were talking about like celebrities at work, and I was talking with these 2 guys that are left of me, and they were like, "Oh man, I was so bummed out when I found out about Kevin Sorbo," and I was like, "Oh, what about him?" And they're like, "He's like crazy." Like, what do you mean? Like they're like, "Oh, he's like really Christian and stuff." I mean, those Christian movies are very cringy. Like he plays very cringy characters and stuff like that. But
no, you should be
but he's
mad at him for the
also
movies.
I know he's also making a lot more sense than most people on Twitter right now. But I was bummed out when I found out about Dean Cain. I was like, wait, that they were Christian? That's what bugged you? Because man, it's rough being. If you would have a rough time if you were like even close to right wing at all. Like if you're right wing of Bernie Sanders and you can only watch celebrities that parrot all of your same views, you're fucked, man.
I don't know. I have some of it going back. Like I used to think I would have loved to hang out with Jimmy Kimmel, and now the dude is irritating as all get up. But
well, the ones that sell out, yeah.
An LDS
that feels a little different.
Program. What's an LDS estuary program?
I think he's talking about. Is he talking about the Jacob Hansen thing?
It might be. That's what I was thinking. That's actually what I was going to talk about first. Because I mean, we're talking about men. What sort of manly men? Somebody who's as manly of a man as Michelle Stone.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Jacob's big into jujitsu, right? Maybe he'd be a good one.
Yeah, I guess jujitsu is necessary. Although Kevin's got a lot of guns that sunk in a shipwreck.
That's a good point. Yeah, Kevin would definitely be on my list.
Paul Vanderklay. Yeah, Paul Vanderklay has like a thing where he just tries to bring a bunch of different religious ideas and people together and not like have it be like a single congregation of people. So he calls it the estuary, and his estuary that's the thing. It's the idea of the place where waters all meet each other. You know how you can see those places in like Brazil and stuff. Where you see the salt water meet with the fresh water type deal. That's what he calls it. I mean, anybody's welcome around here. I mean, I guess we just kind of talk or think about stuff. I just looked at the title of the channel today and just kind of changed it around a little bit, just simplified it and just says we're X or LDS or whatever LDS who just have classical liberal, libertarian, anarchist, whatever type leanings, just anything that's not I don't know, nanny staters, or I don't know what do you even call it, Lynn? Like a neoliberal. And then there's been this whole debate this week with Kwaku asking like, what is the Marxism? And he's a newborn hatchling who doesn't know what any of it is. And then he's getting real upset that they're accusing the black menaces of being Marxists, even though like they have their like black power fist. Everyone, well, that's just the black power fist. That black power fist is Marxist, but
it's funny. I saw my brother just recently because on this subject, and we get a little bit into the politics. Managed to keep it nice, and because like at one point it's like, what are you talking about with this Marxist stuff? And my brother's a librarian. He's got like a degree. It's his job. It's everything, And he's like, like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and I said, like, the president of the American Library Association was a queer Marxist. Her words. My brother went, yeah, I know. She's from Boise. What? So what? And I'm like, why are you pretending like this whole time? Like, you have no idea what I'm talking about then? Like, that's enough. That's it. That's the thing. Like, what if it's just like, oh, it just happened to have like, oh, I'm a Nazi painter. Like, and they're just like, okay, what's the problem with that? The Nazi is the problem part. That's the part that's not okay.
I'm a great artist, and I just so happen to want to exterminate an entire race.
Yeah, it's not okay that the American Library Association president just happens to be Marx. It's like, and then everybody went, that's okay. We're fine with that. In fact, we'll elect it. Like, no, that's an issue.
We were making jokes at work with the same lefty dudes about like, I don't know. He called me a Nazi or something, just jokingly or something. I was like, oh, come on. Nazis get a bad rap. You commit one little genocide, and that's all you guys will ever talk about. And then we're laughing, and he goes, oh, yeah, but of course, he's like, oh, but of course, it was Stalin probably killed a lot more people. Like, that's a stupid retort. And I was like, well, he did.
Yeah, no,
what did. What are you making fun of right here? He sent a bunch of people to his own people even. Like, I guess, like, maybe you could make the argument that he was less discriminatory based on. But he didn't like the Jews either. I don't know.
Well, it really is shocking to me how like I mean, it really is common that people just think that like, oh no, all this stuff about communism is really bad. Like there's three tacks. One is like, yeah, that's capitalist propaganda, and then there's like, well, they didn't do it right, and then the other's like, well, it would have worked if it weren't for those dirty capitalists, you know. But they really, really, really think that like basically it was all fine.
It's sort of the communism has to like scale upward and upward and up. The more you talk to them about it, the more it has to scale to like global, because eventually like, well, it won't work if I just do it in a small little community because I'm still in a capitalist world. Like your system requires everyone to do it. Like everyone has to be forced. That's the only way for it to possibly work, and then it won't work. I also love that they point to Jesus all the time. Like, oh, Jesus fed all these people. It's like, yeah, he had magic powers.
Yeah, magic guy.
Like, why are you pointing? You're like, here's my economic system, and to prove that it works, that we can rely on one dude for all of our food, I'm gonna use a story of a guy with superpowers.
I was thinking about like as an analogy in my head just today. I don't even know why. Like when it comes to like economic things, where it's like, you know, like Ben Shapiro said, like at home I'm a communist, and the further away I get from home, the more socialistic I get. And I think like there's a thing people like a lot of these you know, the social construction type people, the mistake they make a similar mistake where they think there's like a one size fits all thing. And for some reason I was thinking about airplanes and aerodynamics and like the regimes of flight, where like subsonic, transonic, and supersonic flight are like all just they require different aerodynamics and different designs and different. You have to think about flying, you know. And it's just like, because, you know, it's not just flying. And like, I think economics and all these systems are the same way, you know, or like, because people think like, oh, well, if it works on this tiny model, we just keep building it bigger. And it doesn't. The thing about like the communist is it, was it James Lindsay said, is a abject failure never slowed a communist down. You know? But you know, Thomas Sowell talks about it all the time. Like, it doesn't matter how long and how continuously they fail. They just keep adapting the system or saying it's the Republicans' fault, or we just need to change our targets to this, and then it'll work this time.
Yeah. I think a lot of different saying voluntary communism is good. I'm like, I'm not against people setting up a commune. I just think it's very exploitable. Like, I think every time you set up some commune where you share the wealth, I don't know, you get like 100 people together and you say from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, right? Eventually, like, you got to have one person that, or at least some system in place to decide your abilities.
Yeah, well, like communes,
decide your needs. And eventually, like, I'm going to start making arguments that my abilities are lower than yours, so I can do less and get. It's just, I don't know. You see it in classrooms where, I don't know, if, like, you hear those stories of a professor that's like, we're just going to take the average grade and and everybody gets the same grade.
You're a team, class.
Well, I mean, that's what the big fight between Trotsky and Lenin is like how localized or how empirical do we need to take this? And I think anybody who even gets in some of those communes kind of starts realizing you always got to take stuff. Well, everything does. Everything starts moving outward and becoming imperialistic, because it's like growth almost kind of has to be the model until something blows up on top of itself. But yeah, communism can't stop until everybody is in. And I don't know any sort of form of it where it wouldn't have to try to start going to the next level, but voluntary levels of, I mean, I guess you could say the family could be communist. That's Nassim Taleb. We always say the thing of like, with my family, I'm a communist. With my extended family, I am a socialist. With my community, I'm a liberal. With my larger community, I'm a Republican. With my state, I'm a libertarian. With my world, I'm an anarchist. You know, just each level gets bigger. He backs off of a.
Yeah, I mean, you can't effectively run a marriage like a capitalist, right? Like, if we're just because, I mean, we got this agreement, you know, Morgan stays at home with the kids, I make them, it'd be really shitty of me to be like, it's my money, asshole. Like, maybe I'll give you an allowance for watching the kids or whatever. But you have to just assume that you're equal, and that makes sense. The smaller you get, it's doable. The smaller you get.
Yeah. Like communes, I think like communes are like militaries. Like as long as they're voluntary, they're not scary.
Yeah,
you know,
I just
I don't think they'll work usually, but I
just listened to a podcast about that, reminding that Machiavelli, all the way back to him, he talked about like once you have a military, the military should stay voluntary, because as soon as you make it like a state military, you have to use it, you have to expand, or else it could turn on you or become its own thing inside of your kingdom or something like that. And that's one of the concepts that our founding fathers realized, and one of the reasons it's even in the Federalist Papers and everything, that they said we need to have the ability to have well-trained militias, because all that stuff should be voluntary inside the country, because if you turn it into whatever we have now, it will turn into a military industrial complex. And we even wrote and talked about it, and that's one of the concepts behind the Second Amendment, is that stuff is voluntary, or you're supposed to be able to defend yourself voluntarily until it becomes a requirement in wartime to conscript people or something like that. But or else you're facing problems. Machiavelli wrote about it centuries ago. But what you gonna do? We got it. We're dealing with it. We got to go to the wars. We got to go to wars to the Ukraines, and we got to go to wars to the Chinas, and we got to go to wars to the Gaza. And what would we do if we didn't? We'd all die.
We'll die without the war, damn it.
We'll die without the war. Yeah.
America needs Israel more than Israel needs America.
Yeah. Send them the money. This week, I would say almost all the stuff I found interesting was on Ward Radio stuff, and they had several different podcasts. They had one yesterday about men in the church, and then they had Kwaku and Jacob getting in fights about what Marxism is or isn't, and talking about the Black Menace dude. And then they were also had Jacob Hansen landed on a revolutionary idea. And I predicted, I guess I predicted it, and actually the one that I kind of put in there as a joke became real. I was just, most likely the revolutionary revolutions they're going to talk about. This is the day before it came out. New prophets must be under 40 and chosen from obscurity. B, missions done by drone. C, Taco Tuesdays. D, hey dogs, we got to refocus on the Books of Mormon and love of Christ. And it turned out to be C, Taco Tuesdays. I think I even have a clip showing that it's Taco Tuesdays. But let me see here.
I was waiting for the big thing, because if you call it something revolutionary, I don't know. I feel like maybe there should have been a little bit of pushback in there.
I don't know.
Or like, maybe he didn't want to call it revolutionary, and Cardin just got out in front of the skis saying that. But
no, I'm pretty sure he called it revolutionary.
Did he?
Well,
here it is. Listen, tell me I'm lying.
Perfect. All right. Okay. Awesome. So chicken wings and soda shops. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Hansen is going to revolutionize the church with chicken wings and soda shops, and we will not be able to baptize people fast enough. We won't be able to create brotherhood and fraternity and sisterhood fast enough, because the soda will be so lime and coconutty tasty, and the chicken wings will be so hot and spicy that we'll have to be beating them away with a stick. So anyway,
it's Taco Tuesday.
Those guys.
I don't know.
They have an impossible job and they're good at it, so I give them credit.
I don't know. I get that you have to. I'm always sympathetic toward them, just because I'm like, yeah, that is pretty fucking difficult to try to convince men to be religious again. And I guess, I mean, that's the Peterson thing. He talks about, like, you have to ask more of them, and I don't know. They're right in some ways, because those were the good things about church, was like scouts. I remember I didn't like merit badges very much, but I loved the campouts. It was fun as hell. And there was always some fucking hall monitor den mom that ruined all of it. Like we had this. I don't know how they let us do this in the first place. We had this awesome leader when I was a deacon that we did a camp out every single month. And they were like scheduled campouts, most of them. Like in September, we had the tape ball camp out, where I'm not kidding you, we would it wasn't even a camp out. We'd just sleep in the church, and we would spend a couple hours just rolling up balls of duct tape, like really tight. And we would wear goggles, and we'd set up like tables as cover on either side of it was basically just dodgeball, but it hurt a lot. Because those tables are fucking hard, and it was so much fun. God, it was fun. And then, of course, some kid cried, and his mom was like, "My kid's a pussy, and I would like him to be even more of a pussy, so you guys can't do this anymore." So we had to stop doing it. Then there was generator camp out, where we all went to this giant teepee. They had a bunch of generators. We hooked up TVs. We watched movies and played video games. It was fucking awesome. It was in February. So it's like tundra wasteland out there, and we're just playing video games in a teepee. It was awesome until some mom found out that a kid brought Grand Theft Auto, and I can't get me. He's going to be committing crimes, satanic panic, blah, blah, blah. We're like, don't tell your moms, you fucking idiots.
Well, I mean, that's something that I would give credence to, because like on that podcast, Cardin started pushing back a bit, and then the next day they came back and really addressed it, saying, "Hey, we're not going to get permission to do this. The church is way too risk averse now." And actually, I mean, one of the things that all of us were obviously rolling our eyes about the whole entire thing is that this was the church in the 80s, like you're saying, that just do the 80s again or something like that. And when I was on the Midnight Mormons forever ago, the thing I said to them was they got to hold to the cultural stuff and get off of all these sorts of things where they're deracining themselves and cutting and stripping everything down to have stuff just be Christ, just be Christ. And they were arguing with me, saying that no, we got to make it just all the cultural stuff's the bad stuff that gets you the weird Utah suburbanite culture, and we need to get rid of it. And I'm like, it was the culture, it was the softball that kept people together, man. It was all that sort of stuff. I remember when I was a kid, we would have these mission farewells, and the mission farewells were literal "this was your life" TV programs, you know, like everybody in the ward would get up and talk about the kid, like, "Oh, I remember when this did that, and then here's your long lost grandpa, oh son," all that sorts of stuff. And it was like a raucous time, and I remember those to this day, and they seemed all awesome and cool. And then at some point or another they said, "Don't even talk about the kid, just talk about Christ." And I hear that they do the same sort of thing with funerals even nowadays.
No, they did the same thing with testimony meeting. Like testimony meeting was either funny, or it was absurd, or it was boring. Like, but I remember everybody starting to complain. I think when one guy with any amount of sort of local influence complains about a thing, everybody else starts to think, yeah, I don't like that thing either, because that smart guy doesn't like the thing. And so like somebody started complaining about like it's testimony, not story-mony, which that doesn't roll off the tongue. That sounds stupid. But they get mad that people would get up there and tell stories and relate it to the gospel, you know, and like, you should just get up there and say, I believe in Jesus or whatever. I'm like, what? Are you kidding? That's how we learn, is through stories, you dipshit. Just like, you don't want to hear stories. And that's like the funniest part, because there's always some crazy lady in the ward who tells you about seeing ghosts or whatever. It's fucking awesome. You want to get rid of that?
When we were missionaries,
they'd be like, I believe in Jesus, that's all.
Our joke when we were missionaries in California was that testimony meeting was called travel log, because there's always one of them would be like, you know, when we happened to be in Mexico this last week, and the saints there are so faithful, it was so amazing. And then from there we went to Costa Rica, and where the saints are just so faithful.
You sound like my mission president's wife.
No, exactly. That's who it is. Yeah.
Risa says, demand more. We need 4-hour church on Sunday.
Yeah. That's not what I meant.
Yeah. And if you object again, I'm going to 30. This is a good time as any to bring up this. I made good on my side of the bet.
Oh,
Now I am in friggin' church, and I had to drive a dang hour to get there because Kevin lives up in like Eagle Mountain area. And I had to get up. I was overdressed. Nobody dresses up like all the way like that anymore. I thought they were all dressed like missionaries nowadays anyway. But the thing that I noticed, because this is the honest truth. I went to my nephew's farewell, and I was just kind of there for the sacrament meeting part where he did his farewell. I think I once went to like my niece's or somebody's blessing or something like that, and it's just like a little bit of sacrament meeting. This is the first time I did all of church, and it was only 2 hours, so it didn't feel like all of church to me in a long in over 20 years. Like I counted up, it's been 20 years, and I did the whole thing and was sitting there. I told you guys when I went to the Peterson thing, I was going to try to compare it to that, but the first thing I did notice, and it weirded me out, is Kevin knows all his neighbors' names. You know, and I'm like, what is this? Like, whoa. And like, I didn't realize like how much that just wasn't true of my life anymore until that moment.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
And
I've lived in this building for like 8 years, and I think I know 2 of their names.
I don't know a dang stinking person around me at all.
No,
And,
I told Morgan that. I'm like, like my parents still live in my not childhood, but like they lived there for like 20 years, right? So I know everyone in that neighborhood still, because I went to that ward for like a decade before I went on my
parents
mission.
too, and those people
So
are still my people.
I grew up with all these people, so I know these people's names, and I'm like, now I'm in this neighborhood where I'm like, I don't know anyone, and I was like, shit. That's maybe like the most because one of my friends was like, if you would like go to a church just for practical reasons, what would you do? And I said, probably Mormon church, and he's like, why? Because he's ex-Mormon, you know, and I'm like, well, I mean, as long as I don't believe in churches, you might as well go with the most practical one, right? And so all of my neighbors are Mormon. Like, one of the most practical reasons for me to go to church is to know my community. So what else would I do? Plus, you know, Morgan went to the Unitarian church the other day, and they just have like pride flags and BLM flags. And Mormon church isn't there yet.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird because like I was walking around under just, you know, not even assuming, I just wasn't even thinking about it, but I was assuming that these are all kind of like the strangers at the gym, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that guy, I don't know that guy, we're just here, you know what I mean? But no, he knows all of them, all their lives, all their stuff's going on. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I even knew this because a lot of the times when I go in my head defending crappy things that people say about Mormons, in my head, I'm defending all the people of the 2 main wards that I grew up in because they were cool, nice, very good, friendly people. Growing up, and if people want to talk crap on them, they can say it to my fist, you know. But listening to all that and finding out that he knew like all the ins and outs of their lives, this guy does that, and that guy, you know, and they talked about their stuff. That part of it, I seemed like, oh yeah, that's missing, and it's missing big time. And you obviously got to know people even more back when you're doing scouts or basketball. It's so funny because those guys are saying, what if we started a basketball league? And
what are you talking about?
Like, what? Like, there's a turkey about the basketball
I don't know
leagues.
By the way, I don't know how den mothers haven't ruined that.
Oh, they have. There's no basketball leagues anymore and stuff.
Wait,
they removed softball, and they removed like a lot of that different stuff because people started getting too many fights. Mormons started getting famous for different types of fights and all that sort of stuff.
Did you ever watch? That's actually my favorite Mormon movie is Church.
I never
saw that one.
It's actually
got like actually good comics in it.
Well, so yeah, they got Gary Coleman in it. They got
they got a couple other comic actors.
The third Wilson brother is the main character.
Oh, not Owen Wilson, or
Owen Wilson. I think his name is Andrew Wilson.
Oh, no,
he's pretty great.
It's got Wilfred. What's his name? He's a really funny. What's that?
Whatever.
Hey, he was in Brigham City.
Fred Willard, not Wilfred.
Oh, Fred Willard.
Fred Willard.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah, and Clint
he was
Howard.
The bishop.
Clint Howard's in it. Yeah.
Clint Howard?
Yeah. I gotta watch this.
No, it's really actually good.
That's just sold me on it. Clint Howard, that's a clincher. I need to see this thing.
I can't remember who plays him. I always picture Dax Shepard. I know it's not Dax Shepard, but like he's the less active guy who swears too much, and like he actually swears and they just bleep it out, and they're like trying to give him tips for like not swearing, and like have you tried a swear jar? And he's like, yeah, we tried that. And he's like, what happened? He's like, my wife bought a fucking gazebo.
That's a genuinely good joke.
No, it's a good joke. And there's this great part where they see this new family move into the ward boundaries. And there's these 2 like gigantic, like 6'4" black dudes. They're brothers. They're playing basketball, dunk, and all this shit. And they're like, well, they can't play on our adult team, obviously, but their dad probably can, and he's probably all right. And they're like, this gigantic truck pulls up, and they're super excited to, all right, it's building up, and all of a sudden Gary Coleman steps out. Well, I'd love to play basketball with you fellas.
Wow, that's racist.
I want to watch it. I gotta see it now. I wonder where you can get it.
I don't know, but it's actually good.
Steve Eliason says, one of my favorite testimony meeting quotes was a guy who got up there and totally seriously said, I am not a sheep, I'm a sheepdog. One time a guy bore his testimony about being frugal by wiping both sides of the toilet paper so he wouldn't waste it. Dead serious too. Man, I miss when the sacrament meeting was good and weird, man.
We had this great dude when I was waiting on my visa. So I was in Yankton, South Dakota as a missionary. We had Brother Starr, and Brother Starr was pretty autistic, and his wife was also pretty autistic. And he was just like, if he was played in a movie, it'd be played by Zach Galifianakis, right? And he wasn't, there were certain things he wasn't allowed to do because they kept chasing people away from the church. There was this like Native American family that lived there, and he just told them what he's like, you know, your skin's that way because of an ancient curse, right? And we're like having this ward party at one point, and somebody's like hands me a guitar, and I'm playing something. I started playing like House of the Rising Sun, and he's like, you know why it was the bane of many a fair boy elder? And I was like, I don't know, Brother Starlet. It was a whorehouse, a house with prostitutes in it. And he's like, just saying it's a bunch of kids, and all the parents were like, oh, what's
I just watched an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where he's dating a lady whose kid supposedly has autism. And he comes down like, who's this bald asshole? But then throughout like the episode, he starts questioning, is that kid really autistic or is he just an asshole? After a while, he goes, did he ever get a diagnosis? He goes, no, I just know. I'm his mom. I just know. I'm like, I don't think he's autistic.
Have you seen any of Vosh's running defense?
No.
He stops. Yeah, his child porn defense. He stops.
I'm
like
so
every.
Happy that that's still going. Like it's
amazing
how as fast as things disappear in the modern internet land. Like, I'm glad to know that, like, that's just not going to, you can't just shake that one off.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because his defense was terrible. And, like, he stops every 30 minutes to remind you that he's autistic. It's like, and I know that shouldn't be a very good defense. It's like, well, it's not.
Steve says, I've known so many friendly kooks at church. But one of the deals is like, obviously not being at church, you can like weed out all the kooks from your life. And sometimes I go, maybe I should be friends with more kooks, you know, maybe there should be a reason that I'm getting put in a space where I'm having to talk all the time with this 75-year-old guy who tells me weird stories and stuff like that. But that was the one good part of the church. The flip end of it is it was criminally boring. Like, like obviously, like you just leave stuff up to talks with like normal ward members, and they get up and talk about the Sabbath day. I'm dead serious. This was the first question in Elders Quorum. Kevin can back me up on this. What does it mean to be a child of God? Like, stop and wait, and somebody finds them. Oh, I'm a relationship. And then I'm like, man. I know this is the first thing we talked about in primary. I know it was like, and we're hearing like these elders quorum with all these adult dad dudes, but it was interesting to be in a dad space once again too, because the only time you get any other sort of like kind of guy space is over here at all. But that's also, I guess we'll get into that. But that's why I called myself Codified Chris. I didn't notice until the Jubilee video that Cardin says codified all the time. I'm wondering if he used to say it all the time. But it became such a meme in that. But since then, he's said it like 9 million different times again, like codified. It's like a meme of him. Your grandma Tarkin and Flip is can't believe it's not butter.
Can believe.
I can't
my
believe it.
Lord, it was boring.
I did not fail the Ash conformity test of can't believe it's not butter because I can believe it's not butter.
No, I just saw you named the thing Grandmacracy, and I was like, I want to have a grandma pun, so I'm Grandma Tarkin.
Yeah, so that actually came up in a Ward Radio episode from the guy they were talking about why men hate church, and I was going to pull it up because it seems like their theme this week.
Dull.
Yeah, well, he had some other stuff. He talked about how like any sort of situation, he's speaking about anthropologically, where women start taking over, men only take over like when the need is there. And if there's no need there, if women start taking over, they're happy to turn it over. And that's how it's been throughout society. Actually, Flip and I read some article years ago, which I can never find again, that talks about how patriarchy never actually was a patriarchy. It actually does come down from like the mother's, like the grandmother's side. It really is a grandmacracy. Like if you really looked at like the detail of like what steers society. But he called it like a grandmacracy, and he was talking about how men don't go to church because it's basically it was a longhouse episode. He was talking about because you go turn it into the longhouse all the time.
It's funny. My dad and all of his siblings were together the other day, and they don't get together often. And they're having lunch, and my aunt said something about saying a prayer, and only 2 out of the 5 of them are, really believers. And she said, like, well, it's what mom would have wanted. And they were like, and all of them, because that thing's like there's 4 boys and a girl, and the girl said, like, well, mom would have wanted us to pray, and all the boys went, oh, okay. Like she's been dead since 1986.
I heard from this thing from the Honey Badger radios. They called it like, I forget the word. It was called hastening or something like that. That it said that back in the times in like early America, where only men could vote and only certain men in the community, they had these groups of women. They'd have to give their votes for things out in a public square, and these women would form these groups of shamers. And the groups of shamers would go stand from the women, the men who are making the vote, and just be like, it's just like complete longhouse stuff, and it would completely steer how votes were made all the way back then. Oh, yeah. And there's documents about it. There's history on that sort of deal.
It's Steve Eliason made a good point. There's like no continuity from week to week. He's like, one week they'll tell you to set some goals. The next week they give you a list of goals from the brethren. It doesn't matter if they were different from the ones you already set. Like, no, that's it. That's one I hadn't even thought about in a long, because I remember them saying, how can we set some goal? And then like everybody feels bad that there's no participation because it's fucking boring and it was a dumb question. And they say, I could eat better this week, I guess. It's some vague shit like that. And then there's like never a follow-up or anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could see the same thing with so Jacob's got the idea of let's reinstitute, although I don't know why they were talking like it was a new idea. I mean, I guess you got to present stuff like a new idea for it to be exciting or something. Yeah. But
I know none of it sounded super new.
I think Before the Crow's Nest won that one with Local Man and Men's Friends.
So funny. That was great.
So he starts coming up with these ideas of all these people got to start doing other activities besides boring ass church. And they've stripped it down to just boring ass church. But we know why it's just boring ass church. It's just boring ass church because of their risk aversion, because it's been lawyered up, because of the managerial revolution. My dad, I told Flip about it years ago. I told him they're going to get rid of scouts, and they're trying to get rid of scouts, and they want to get rid of scouts. The only reason they're holding on to it is Thomas S. Monson. But one of the main reasons they want to get rid of it is because they knew it was going to become a legal problem. In fact, they already did know it was. I know growing up, the stuff that was the best and the stuff I'm saying they should hold on to, I know I saw some injuries in softball. I know I saw some injuries in some river rafting stuff and heard about them, and stuff went down. And nowadays, like one of the reasons like RFM and those guys always want them to apologize for stuff and they won't apologize is because as soon as you apologize in this society that's so like sue happy, that means, okay, now we can hold you liable for it, and then start coming at you for all sorts of funds or something like that. I mean, there's definitely risk. There's loyalty risk and all that sorts of stuff. And if they have to fund it or get behind it, sooner or later, they'd be paying out all sorts of stuff. But not like they didn't have the money for that. If I were them, I would invest money in that or something like that. But they stripped it all away for safety. They could say it's because we just want to refocus on Christ. I don't believe that for a second. I think it's risk aversion. But Jacob has the idea that like, well, maybe if we do it from the bottom up without permission, but that kind of goes in line with what Steve's saying is like, if we go set these goals or go do all these things, like what on earth could be the follow through of that whole entire thing? I think Jared was saying something like, he's saying, what fly fisher guy doesn't want to teach every single person in be a fly fisher?
No, he said that, and I was like, man, like have you met fishermen? Like, he's
a bunch of tired moms have just
teach everyone. It's like, no, they wouldn't. Are you kidding
a bunch of tired moms have just dropped off 6 bratty teenagers. Okay, learn fly fishing. It's your job to teach them.
Like drop you off at Chris's house. Be like, can you? He's gonna teach you guitar, and since he likes to play guitar, he would love to teach a bunch of people guitar who want to learn 4 chords for their Taylor Swift song.
And I remember that. I don't know, just exactly on topic, but when I was on my mission, there's just some lady I remember my companion and I we had to shut them down, but this lady in the ward volunteered us to sing a bunch of songs for some Christmas thing, and we were both like, no, look, we don't want to do that, and she's like, no, it's okay, you can do that, no, they'll love it. It's we had to shut her down, no, we're not doing this. Leave us alone.
It's not that we
find someone who wants to do
worthy. It's that we don't want to.
Yeah, we don't.
That was one of the things that they said, how about we start the choirs? And that's so funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a weird one to say.
What are you talking about?
But I told you guys about my older brother and his group of friends who were BYU's men's chorus and other different high-level choirs from BYU who did go start a choir because they believed that the Tabernacle Choir has lost it's gone through its own competency crisis.
Wow.
So they do that thing, and I already talked about it here a little bit, that they're already going through just on their little voluntary friendly choir. They're calling me up for advice on how to deal with sexual harassment lawsuits.
Wow.
That's just how the world goes now, man. But
you see that article I sent about the women's soccer?
Yeah, you got to stop having all the sex in the women's.
There's too much hooking up in women's soccer. Too many coaches dating players. It's got to stop.
Everything becomes problematic. That's what these people don't realize. They've created a world where we can't do anything that's not going to get sued out of our butts for. But Risa's got a good one on the finished bath. That's a good idea. You could get a bunch of people into that sort of thing. Anything that actually takes work to get good at or become a team at. I don't know how you do a basketball or softball league unless you get widespread coordination across a bunch of different stakes and wards and stuff like that. But
I don't know.
Reese has already converted a bunch of missionaries.
I think it's part of this whole thing is because he's trying to get. They're talking about 2 things: getting inactive members active, and then getting strangers into the church. That's really what this is about, which is already okay. Well, there's kind of a problem there because the fact is that if people really want to fish, they can just join the fishing club that isn't associated with any religion. They can just cut that part out of the equation and just not even deal with it,
Yeah, but if the church was smart, they could put stuff like that. I mean, the reason a bunch of kids who weren't Mormon came and became Boy Scouts is because they did that thing. So this is the other end of it. Yeah. Jacob's not wrong. He's just trying to reinvent the wheel for something that they already sold down the river.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I don't think they're going to unsell it, but he's not wrong. That would be a way to make church less of a infinite torture. Well, at least how it's they cut out any of the parts of it that I kind of liked and I didn't like a ton. And just left the torture parts for me. We just need to keep it very, very boring, very innocuous, very simple concept lessons at church, and that's it.
Yeah, Sundays were depressing.
So you're just saying people need a chaser after the rot gut shot. You just need something to make it go down a little easier. Church sucks, but at least we can go bowling.
Stevens, somebody says that the water polo league would work better in their area. High Council is like a Stalin Politburo. How was state conference this time, brethren? Answer: it was great. Did anybody have a problem anywhere? We need to stop something from people doing anything besides talking about Christ or whatever. Eating together, food together. I could see ways they could get sued. Actually, you even brought that one up, Flip. They talked about cooking class and all that sorts of stuff. Well, they don't. Yeah. Now there's all sorts of codes and laws about using the kitchen and all that sort of stuff.
Since I was a kid, they hammered it into us that you may only prepare, you can warm food up and then you can chop salad, but you are not allowed to cook in church.
Oh, dude, it was great. In Brazil, they just ignored that shit.
Well, because the laws were different. That's why. They've
managerial class, bureaucracy, lawyered out everything possible for it. And to Cardin and those guys' credit, the next day they came back and Cardin was saying that like the answer will be no. The answer will be no from Salt Lake.
Well, I mean, Cardin pretty much immediately said it right there. Like I actually watched that stream, and his wife even said it like right away. When he's like, I think he asked her like, "What's to stop him from doing that?" Just like, they're pussies. I mean, she didn't.
They removed it already.
She
It was
said
there,
like liability.
And they removed it.
Yeah, this is just like liability.
Yeah, it's funny because like I don't know. She strikes me as not a real brainy person.
I haven't seen much of her, but that was an astute, immediate observation.
Spot on there, for sure.
I don't think she claims to be.
No, nothing wrong with that.
So this is the one, why men hate the church and how to fix it. And the first thing they talked about is that like men and fathers, if they're active, have way higher rates of their kids staying and remaining active. But I thought this portion was funny here because they started talking about the feminization of church and all that sorts of stuff.
Communication, beauty, relationship.
Well, that's probably too fast. Playback speed 125.
It's nurturing, healing, etc. On the left, we've got conquest, and which set of values best represents those of Jesus Christ and his true followers. And on the left, we've got love, communication, beauty, relationships, nurturing, healing, etc.
He's asking people to look at two different lists and which one represents Christ more.
On the left, we've got conquest and dominion and all these other things that inevitably, every group I've ever shown this to, whether they are male or female, Christian or non-Christian, they always identify this love, communication, and beauty as the values of Jesus and his true followers. And then I reveal where those lists are from. They're from chapter 2 of the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And what happens is audiences always identify the Venus values as those of Jesus, whereas the Mars values are seen as ungodly.
Yep.
And yet, if you find just as much Mars as you do Venus. But everybody thinks of Jesus as this, cozy sniffing, peace-loving, liberal activist.
Does everybody just forget how Jesus saw that fig tree that wasn't producing any fruit, and he says, "Fuck you, tree," and killed it? Like he just touched it, and they're like, "Why'd you kill the fig tree?" So it wasn't producing fruit. It's useless.
Yeah.
Noticed in your experience over the past 20 years?
Well, the fastest growing churches in America are the megachurches, non-denominational megachurches, and uniformly they've gotten rid of the feminine decor, the grandma decorating motif. The lace doilies are gone, the felt banners are gone.
It was good to pull that up, but I was also trying to look for the point where he says I think it's right here. Here we go. Because
what do you want the church to look like? Do you want the church to be all a bunch of old women, which is what we're seeing in the main line right now? I call them grandmacracies, by grandmothers.
Okay.
These churches, they're just disasters because the men have all withdrawn. I think
it's funny because Cardin also kind of couldn't deal with the Mormon church being called not perfect. So he kind of keep pushing back on him like, no, we've got things. That's why I put codified. There's things codified that protect us from some of the things that because this guy's not Mormon.
He went on a rant about how managerial the church was just the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's not Mormon, huh?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
90% of what I hear.
Yeah, he says like this, like listen to.
Well, I could talk to you for hours. Unfortunately, I know that you got to go, and we've got a hard out coming up here pretty soon. But I got to tell you, I'm loving 90% of what I hear, and I think there's easily an 85% crossover between the issues that we have here. Fortunately, I think some of the codification and the heavily organized and correlated structure of our church has installed a couple of backstops against some of the worst aspects of this that other faiths may not have, but. That means that maybe we don't suffer formally from the problem, but culturally we sure as heck do.
I just that felt like there was like several parts where he still just didn't want to accept the criticism, like his apologetics for the church still just kept like seeping in there.
Yeah, I think he's able to criticize the church a little bit more when it's just Mormons, and I think he feels.
Yeah, he won't do it for a Christian.
Yeah, there's just another guy there, and he's like, "Well, no,"
Well, we've had an answer kind of recently for the megachurch stuff. Like you can make it more megachurchy if you all you got to do is where'd it go? Well, they're doing it in the MTC. They had these guys come and perform
Yeah,
at
that
the
was
MTC.
weird.
No matter how far, the spirit can lift you where you are.
This was at the MTC.
This isn't
That's
this video.
so
Not this is
insane.
This
isn't
is so gay.
at the other thing, but this is the band, and I don't have the clip of it, but yes, these guys played at the MTC for sure. I could pull up a clip of the MTC, but they're playing stuff just like this at MTC.
No matter how low, he has to say
But so I guess they're going to become a mega church. That might appeal to men more. I don't know why mega churches appeal to men more, but
Are they Mormon?
Do they?
Christian rock?
That's what the guy claims. It appeals to mega churches more. Mega churches appeal to men more, and then he says partially because the visuals of it look more like a concert than like your grandma's doily bedroom or something like that.
Dude,
But,
I always
Mormon
find mega
brothers?
churches cringy, but I think everything's cringy, so I guess that's a problem.
I can find the one
American
that
pop Christian duo. So they're Mormon Christian rock.
yeah, and played at the MTC. And like,
But like,
fucking-
so like, have they managed to do the things like, because that they've got two problems there? Because okay, Christian rock is dominated by evangelical Christians who've got a real theological issue with a lot of Mormon doctrine, right? And then Mormons have an issue with rock music generally, and they're also always been like, oh, at least we're not lame like those evangelicals with their terrible Christian rock. So have they somehow managed to like walk this razor's edge where like they're cool enough to appeal to Mormons and they're still a Christian rock band and the Christians are okay with the fact that they're Mormons? Like,
so here it is. Here they are at the MTC. It was on Mormon News Roundup with Ura Mormon,
So
our buddy
crazy.
there.
Couple of days ago. What in the world is going on in the MTC at BYU? Let's find out here. And the caption here is that the MTC hits different in 2024.
Can you believe that?
That wasn't my experience here, guys.
No.
That was a very different than when I went through the MTC. Rebecca,
That
you got
is
a
so
comment.
insane to me.
Did he talk about anything like this?
I was in the MTC for Christmas, and we got to watch, what is it? Mr. Kruger's Christmas with
Oh,
Russell
really?
M. Nelson, and that was as rowdy as we got.
They cut to a live feed of Mark McGuire breaking the home run record for a couple seconds. And other than that,
Did he really?
yeah. But
Oh.
I was telling you guys that I was in that exact room when I had my spirit crushed because it was I remember I went in on a Wednesday and they had those things on a Tuesday, and people were telling me all week, just wait till Tuesday, man. Just wait till Tuesday.
No, I know. They still said that when I went through.
It's so yeah, but I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what was coming up. And I was kind of like, what's it going to be? Like a pizza party, chicks, or something like that in my brain. I was like lying to myself. Like, that's where they tell you, like, yeah, it's all been kind of like a secret that we aren't this hardcore all the time.
We actually do
have
orgies
one
most of the
fun
time.
on it. And I was like, okay, something's coming. And I go in there, and it's, again, the most boring general authority giving the most boring talk. And I see all these missionaries just writing and scribbling in their pads. And I, to this day, I want to like pull out their pads and see, like, did you guys really write down, like, you need to use the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yes, I do need to read more.
Like, did you really scribble that down like at full speed and like 6 months later say, look back at what Elder John Johnferson said? Use the Book of Mormon. Oh yes. Like, did you keep that note? You know,
read scriptures, pray daily, go church, pay tithing. Oh, got it. You know.
And I was right in that room, and I remember just being like, that's when it hit me. Like, this is real. And these other guys maybe aren't pretending to like this. Like, they like it. They just in. That's where I felt like, oh, these culty guys are down with it. Like, nobody's just like, because there were some guys in my MTC generation who were totally like me. And we, of course, hit it off the bat, who were totally like, what are we doing?
I had one. It was my companion in the MTC. We didn't get along in a couple ways, but like, we were the like one of the first things that happens is that my whole district is eating lunch together, and one of the guys asked, "What do you guys think about dinosaurs?" And we're like, "What? Like, do I like dinosaurs? Like, what's my favorite one? I don't know what you mean." He's like, "Well, do you believe like in them?" And me and my companion look at each other, what are you talking about? And then like there was this big debate between all of the rest of the district over whether or not dinosaurs existed. And I was like, I have never heard this ever. I just got no, I seriously, like, I grew up believing in evolution and that the earth was, millions of years old. But I don't know. I guess I just ignored the parts that didn't. But I don't know. Me and my companions were the only ones, and everyone started talking about ghost stories. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or talking, I don't know. Missionaries get really into that stuff.
I didn't hear a ton of people talk about that when I was younger, but they definitely did save it.
I always just assumed Utah was
me and a few guys in my district. Man, the stuff we did to get through my district, we started like writing these pass along scriptures. So each of us would like write like a verse and then pass it to the other person and write a verse and pass it to the other person and write a verse. And we just like crack each other up, just kind of like doing like this, I don't know, like this ad lib game like that. Man, that was torture. Like the MTC was torture, man.
Oh yeah, it was hell. Everybody was. Dude, everyone tell you that, like, well, yeah, you don't like it now, but once you get out into the field, you'll miss it. Well, I was told that a bunch, and I never missed the MTC.
I did, just in the sense of like you didn't like have this like weird thing hanging over your head that you had to go bust your butt or try some sort of thing, or you're failing. Like you could just sit there and be bored, and you weren't.
Yeah, failing. There was. I did miss boredom when I was on my mission.
But man, oh man, did that stink! But at the same time, too, like when I was a kid, I imagined a mission. I didn't know what to imagine, and what I imagined was just sitting there for 2 years listening to those same boring talks that I listened to last Sunday, and the MTC was that kind of, I didn't realize like once you got out there in the field, it wouldn't be so bad. You wouldn't be just sitting there constantly talking churchy stuff. But the MTC kind of was like, oh my goodness. And I remember we'd like ask our teachers and stuff to like get into like hard, difficult questions to answer. And they'd be like, don't talk about that stuff. We're not here to talk about that stuff. We're talking about our spirit. Talk about, didn't you like take notes at Elder John Johnfordson's talk last week? He said,
no,
we're in the spirit.
John Johnfordson.
But that was my experience with that. But anyway,
Brother John Johnfordson talking. Doesn't matter, it doesn't exist. I can still hear his voice.
Elders and sisters, it is with happy heart and great spirit that I inform to you that the Lord told me that you need to read the Book of Mormon a couple more times. Oh,
and it was some, this as you go to church, like it was some lesser general authority, and the lesser general authorities are not going to go off script at all. They're going to make it as boring as like possible. Like it's right.
Yeah.
My Tuesday experience was like when they were like, you got to make it till the devotional or whatever it was. And they're all excited. And my experience was that I don't remember his name, but it was a 70. And he seriously got up there, and the first thing he said, elders and sisters, you're not that great, but you're the best we've got. And I was like, okay, fuck you a little bit, man. Like
he was ripping off Hinckley. Hinckley was the first one who said that.
Really? I was
Hinckley
just like,
said it off the cuff.
And not a lot of us are.
Hinckley said it off the cuff, so it was funny. So if somebody goes and like repeats it,
yeah,
that's. I didn't know Hinckley said that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, Hinckley said you're not much to look at, but
that's right. I remember the "you're not much to look at" comment.
But he was riffing. It wasn't like at a speech or anything like that in that moment. But
no, this guy opened it up with that.
Yeah,
you guys kind of suck. Well, fuck you, man. I am paying $400 a month to go teach people about Jesus who don't want to hear about Jesus. All right, what? Not that great compared to fucking what?
Boo! Everything's always the same story. Speaking of which,
oh dude, okay, so I don't know if you saw this, but Zelf finally did. They talked about their deconstruction of Mormonism. Did you see that?
Oh,
I watched all 2 hours.
They talked about I was actually very grateful.
Wait, it was 2 hours. It took her 2 hours.
So I was actually very grateful because I started watching it and Tanner started talking about how Mormon he was and how Mormon his family was. And then I get a text from Chris saying that was the biggest fucking waste of time in my entire life. And I was like, oh, thank God. And I just turned it off.
Like I was listening to it for like maybe they said something wild or something, but no, it was just the most, that podcast flip that Larson started doing of like, what's your exit story? And they just racked up a ton of different boring exit stories. And the reason they were doing it on a separate thing is because they realized it started to be bad podcasting just to listen to people give their exit stories again and again and again and again.
Exactly.
They just gave their boring arse.
Lynn's adorable because he tries to put a new spin on it every week. He's like, this is what it's like to leave the church in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
It's a lot different.
Oh, speaking of which, I listened to that Alyssa
church who was once a missionary. We haven't had that.
I listened to that Alyssa girl's exit story this week too. She did a 2-hour exit story for her.
The Vegas one.
And she wrote that book, and Lynn just had her out. I'll pull her up right here. Man, ways I waste my time.
One of my friends sent me a TikTok with her. I was like, oh Jesus fuck, I don't want to.
So she's written a whole book, and I'm not gonna get the book or anything like that. And so it's like How to Leave the Mormon Church is the name of the book, and this is her. See, that's an hour and 40 minutes, and her whole thing's hers is kind of weird to me, just in the sense of like she was very, very, very sure she had a spiritual answer that she would go to Italy on her mission, and she didn't get that. And then she was very, 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 very sure she had a spiritual answer that she was going to marry this guy. And then he married somebody else when she was on her mission. And then she's like, hey, what the fuck? Church not true. And I'm
Wait a minute.
So you wrote a whole book? Like you wrote a book saying like, cause like, that's not my experience. My experience was like, I never had a solid super answer on anything ever. And so who's to say what to say? I didn't know what to say or think about any sort of thing like that. I mean, I guess maybe it would have been easier if I thought I did get some answer from God and it came not true, and I said, oh, falsified, hooray. But I was like, so that's your book.
But if
your
you
book
tell
says,
if you tell any Mormon like God's revealed to me that I'm gonna go to Italy on my mission, he'll probably tell you, he might be nice and not say anything, but if he's not, he'll just say that's not how it works.
Yeah. And so between that and then saying like a bunch of other times Mormons were mean to her, and the only thing I could think about at the end of it is like, so this is your individual story. How did you put that into a book? How to Leave the Mormon Church? And I don't want to go read the book to see it, but at the end of it, she goes, I think for my second book, I'll talk about more generalized topics.
Second book. Oh, crap.
And so I'm like, wait a minute. So your first book on how to leave the Mormon Church is just your own weird psychosexual drama and your own feelings to get answers on spiritual blessings or something like.
So I got the sample of it on Kindle. I thought about getting it just to read it for Degenerate Book Club, but the that I read was kind of shocking that
we're still getting it on
the amount of
degenerate book blurb.
It was kind of shocking the amount of like editing errors. That's the weirdest thing I was running into. Was like, did you have an editor? And I'm like, I guess it's probably a small thing, and she doesn't have a lot of money, so I should probably give her some grace there. But it's all just such.
But I just also think
it's exactly what you think it is. Like, tell me what you think it is. What do you think she says? Like, how to leave the Mormon Church?
Okay, so this is what I thought first. It's a yellowish book, so it kind of has like it looks like kind of like a Leaving the Church for Dummies book. So I thought it was going to be full of all sorts of stuff of like, you write in here, you do stuff here, you talk with people here based off of this evidence. Like I thought it was some sort of research book on how to procedurally exit some high demand religion or something like that. If it was just her own individual story, I mean, I already know what it is because I think she just said it. She just put it on repeat in that podcast right there is my guess. But
so she talks a lot about her own story, but like the stuff that I read, and she does like, it sounds like she leaves space. I had it on Kindle, so I didn't see it, but sounds like she leaves like space in the margins or like notes at the end of a chapter or whatever, but because she says like write a couple notes down about how that makes you feel or whatever.
I like how Paul Vanderklay doesn't say you walked away from the church, You say you woke away from the church. You walked away from the church.
You walked away.
Would anybody be paying attention to the list if she weren't young and cute? That's a question. I mean, maybe. I mean, but that's kind of one of the deals. Is like, so Zelf and what's his name, Tanner? How many Tanners can you fight? They could just like get the transcript of the thing they said today and put that in a book and make it look like it's some sort of answer of like how to go about leaving the Mormon church, and just, I mean, that's just a book now, right?
Hell yeah.
I guess you could do that, but I don't know. It was kind of confusing to me. Of like, I honestly thought it was like a for dummies, how to go about doing that or something, but twasn't. But that's just going back onto the subject of things that are endlessly repetitive, the same stuff again and again and again and again. I don't even know what John DeLynne's talking about lately. And then we get from RFM and Feel Real some more stuff about some things about the Book of Mormon don't seem to add up exactly right. And you're like, yeah, they sure do. And Bill Real went and got all legalistic about it and said, "You guys take down your podcast because it can't be true that the stuff's Jewish." What is it, like Hebrew? It's not really Hebrew centric, whatever stuff. So you better take down your videos. I don't know why I got legalistic about it. I mean, I think the takedown video was good enough about it, but at the same time, that takedown video to me was just the most repetitive thing in the world once again. Yeah. But nobody is more repetitive than this guy. Jamie King. I made this dumb meme about his he says it's a joke that American evangelicals presume to blithely to speak for all Christianity, and I put boo, get better adverbs, and then he gets stunned by that, and his cue card says blithely this, blithely that, blithely this, blithely that. But one of the things we originally talked about, Jared and I, with him, is that I don't even want to talk about him this week. He didn't have very much to go on, but he has the same 7 subjects. Like if you follow, like it's usually Moloch, something about modesty. It didn't work for a meme because it was like too long of a list, but it's still just like the same 7 things over and over and over and over again. And that's all getting boring. So the Ward guys, and they were more interesting this week because they talked about man problems, man issues, and making churches for men and trying to bring back the 80s. And what does the academic agent call that? Bring back Fresh Prince, bring back the 90s. But then they got into the fight of Kwaku and, well, it didn't turn into a fight until afterwards that Jacob said something on Twitter about it. But the Black Menaces dude got his diploma and put up a TikTok. I wonder how much longer I'll even be able to play TikTok on here. You see that TikTok got banned?
Did it actually?
TikTok, they passed the law saying the TikTok shall be banned.
There shall be no more talking.
You know, I don't like banning things, but I guess TikTok is pretty fucking poison.
No, apparently, like, because that's the whole thing. Is like, I guess, like, the deal is on the table to the CCP. It's like, if you sell TikTok, just sell it. Like, you know, like, apparently there's a bunch of American companies that are like putting together a consortium or whatever to try to buy it, because if like that's the whole thing. It's like if the CCP can't get their hands on the servers, then nobody cares anymore. But things like right now, like, you know, I know it's like there's a few months ago, but there was some of that testimony meeting, and I remember it being like, you know, as far as Senate testimony meeting goes, like pretty hardcore stuff. Where it's just like, you know, the lady representing TikTok where it was being grilled by Jim Jordan or somebody, but it's just like, so just tell me that you, like, if the CCP asks, you won't hand this over. And like, she just can't say those words. Like, you know, yeah, it was pretty telling that there's a reason that this is a concern.
Oh yeah, well, I guess, but the thing is, like, if the American government gets a hold of it, how much better is it going to be? You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
they're just going to also use it to spy on us.
Yeah. Some other people are saying that they'll use the wording in the laws as well to go further and say other places like Rumble or in violation or something like that. But I don't know.
I got a new name, Chris.
What?
Look, it's
you made a new name? Keep on deconstructing. Keep on deconstructing. Keep on deconstructing.
We could do a parody podcast where we just parody the people we're talking about. Where every week
we should the same way Red Letter Media guys do. What's
the Nerd Crew?
The Nerd Crew. God, that was so funny.
We should do the deconstructing crew and just come on in like full character when we can.
I found this channel that is just entirely, well, not entirely, but mostly like he's got this series called Star Wars Shills React to, and then it's
Star
you
showed
Wars
me that when I saw some of it.
That's one of my favorite fucking things to watch because, man, I loved the Nerd Crew because I was like, yeah, this seems like a parody of what this stuff would be, but I'd never actually watched any of those things.
Yeah.
Aside from like the little clips you get when you walk into a GameStop
or
whatever.
Had before I saw Nerd Crew.
And then I was like, holy fuck, this isn't even a parody. This.
Yeah, did you ever watch Kevin Smith reaction videos? And he'd cry.
Oh God!
When he cried for Star Wars, I'm just like, oh, you can't be serious, buddy. That's weird. That Star Wars was not good.
You shouldn't cry. We should Nerd Crew for that. For some sort of deconstructing thing. This is the Black Menaces guy.
His post. Just gonna let it refresh.
A gift. And it's time to unbox it with you. It's my diploma. I'm free. I can now give you the step-by-step reason why I left the Mormon Church.
We know.
And why BYU is one of the least favorable
the least what?
Experiences for me. And my other few favorite experiences also deal with the Mormon Church. So like, I don't know, top 3 for sure. Anyways, I can pull this out of here. I can officially say that I'm a college graduate and that BYU has zero hold on me ever again. And it's time to air out the business. But with this degree, oh my gosh, honestly, let me even look at it. I didn't even look at it yet. Brigham Young University, our recommendation of
Okay, so anyway, we don't have to play the whole entire thing here. Everybody gets the gist. But I mean, if you're celebrating the fact that I got my degree now, and the moment I got my degree, I'm announcing my anti-Mormon podcast. Everybody knows that there's an emotional and a philosophical runway up to this, and that the divide between the views that you've been espousing and the views of the gospel in many aspects, not all aspects, but in many aspects, are so far. This could not have happened overnight, which means you had to have been lying.
But what are
during those
views?
months.
Here's why I think
proto-Marxism.
But we have to give an example of a TikTok. What are those views? Because what makes them
That's
effective
fair.
is that they don't really give their views. They just ask questions, and people then give the responses. So you have to give an example, or else you're assigning them a motive that they could come back and say, give me an example of one.
So actually, that's a really good example. And what I would do is actually I'll put the onus, because I'm not a middle ground player here, but I feel like I'm somebody that can see both sides of the argument. And instead of me trying to say what I think their sides of the argument are, I say we bring them on really fast. I bring them on. So we promised that we would have Luke Hansen here. By the way, Luke, that was a horrible introduction.
So then they go into like a whole entire thing about Marxism and give us an example of them being Marxists. And they weren't prepared, so they couldn't really pull up a clip of those guys being Marxists. They talked about like having their like black power fist on stuff everywhere. But so then they go into all this sorts of stuff. And this is the clip that got clipped out on Twitter.
Eloquently.
Yes.
Eloquently made the case that they are promoting Marxism or anti-Mormonism in a Trojan horse in disguise. But
you're not that retarded,
Kwaku. Is that they can always say, look, we don't promote any belief really. We just ask people questions. So
we're just asking questions.
We do need an example of them, promoting anti-Mormonism or Marxism. And then we don't have that example, then it seems as if you're
now, okay, well, you're talking about a past thing, and I'm saying, hey, until we have that, I think I think Luke made a very specific argument talking about a video. And Luke, hey, if you find it, you can send it to us. We'll put it up. For right now, because we indeed want to be fair and not do what we hate people doing to us. We're saying scrub that. We're going to look at random videos, and then we're going to discuss them. All right. And we'll say bygones are bygones for the sake of argument in this podcast. And we're just choosing letters and just randomly auditing the TikTok page in order to be fair?
I don't know if I would have just jumped straight to like using the word like Marxist for them, because it is like the neo-Marxist critical consciousness stuff that comes out of like, I would call them like critical conscious wokeists or something like that. Not just like directly they're Marxists, because they probably don't know the first darn thing about the economics of a Marxist or something like that. But
like anyone who was shocked that guy left the church is stupid.
Yeah,
and I don't believe that anyone was shocked, and especially like, he maybe don't jump out of the gate and say Marxist, but like they're clearly subversive. I mean, watch any Black Menace TikTok video. All it is this is why Utah is terribly racist. This is why the Mormon Church is terribly racist. Or they'll ask a question, see, these kids don't know why they're against specific leftist position or whatever. Yeah, like this kid's backwards on, like, oh, why do you think women shouldn't have the priesthood? See, this yokel thinks that women shouldn't have the priesthood. This redneck thinks that Trump was a good idea, or that abortion should be illegal. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty standard Mormon shit. So it's so just completely blatantly obvious these guys are being subversive. I wouldn't even call it subversive, like openly antagonistic. They're not even good at subversion anymore. They just, we just fuck with the Mormon Church, and they pretend that we're not, because they're all a bunch of hatchlings.
So then this back and forth started happening with Jacob and Kwaku on the Twitters. In Twitter, you always kind of have to go backwards on stuff. But this is Jacob saying that, but you think I have to atone for the sins of other people just because they shared my skin tone? And Kwaku said, I never said that. I do, however, think the collective political efforts that were instituted to harm people for generations should be dismantled and equitably replaced. Assuming that as a dig against white people is the maximum example of victim culture. And that was coming from this prior thing. So correcting the mistakes and atoning for blood and sins of a generation is Marxism. Somebody did pull this clip. This is the clip from the Black Menaces that somebody pulled of like an example. This wasn't the one that they saw that night. So some people on Twitter might have thought he was apologizing for this clip. But the thing is, too, is that Kwaku knows their clips. You know, he's friends with all of them.
Kendi, who said that discrimination in the past has to be corrected by discrimination in the present. Something along those lines.
I love that.
And people are like, oh, that's, so controversial, and socialism and communism. But the thing is, no, that's just common sense. If you have a scale,
that's retarded.
You put a bunch of weights on one side of the scale, it's going to tip to one side. And then all you have to do to fix that is just discriminate to the other side of the scale. You add a whole bunch of weights, and it evens out. You're not going to keep adding weights to this side and just let it keep going, right? You're gonna add weights to the other side to balance things out. That's just
if you add to both of them, it's still going to be uneven.
Exactly right. It's just common sense.
His own analogy is kicking his ass.
We have to make up for the mistakes we've made in the past, and that's why.
If you want to balance a scale, you got to put the same amount of weight on both sides. He's like, obviously, we got to more weight was on this side for a while, so we got to put more weight on this side to balance the scale. No, you balance a scale by making everything equal, like liberal equality.
Yeah, so Kwaku's answering to that. He's saying, so correcting mistakes and so apologizing for that crap candy thing that basically everybody has ripped apart into shreds for 4 or 5 years.
If you believe that, you're dumb. Like, if I don't know, like with Ibram X Kendi, like there's a lot of, I don't think you're dumb just if you're woke, but if you're woke and cite Ibram X Kendi, you're dumb. I sound like Anna Kasparian now. God damn it. I'm better than you.
You can say John McWhorter and Glenn Wright, because I mean, if you want to hear like a rant on how stupid Kendi is,
he
John
is stupid.
On a rant on him.
He is a stupid person.
But that's Kwaku basically apologizing for it. But he acts like this is. I'm going to go into. I'm going to review the idea of the hatchling here in a second. Because Kwaku's king of the hatchlings. So correcting mistakes and atoning for blood and sins of a generation is Marxism. My God, you're endorsing racial discrimination to get approximately equal outcomes, because that is Kendi's woke shtick with that quote. That is Marxist. Atonement is not racial discrimination reverse. Maybe you just don't understand the quote's concept, but that's the meaning of it. I didn't mention race. Neither did the video you uploaded. Come on. Race isn't the subject at hand here. What the hell are you people even talking about? I said fixing mistakes of the past is a good thing. I agree. It's racist to want to fix mistakes. That's insecurity.
It's racist to call for racial discrimination, Kwaku. What the fuck do you think he's saying?
Yeah. If you go deeper into it, I mean, you had to kind of dig around because he'd only like answer some other things. But like later on, he said like this. Okay, I was wrong. I get why people leave the church. Our view on political discourse is terrible. Our treatment of those who differ from the mainstream is terrible. Kwaku for a long time. I mean, I think it is getting kind of squashed down right now. But the Kendi stuff is the mainstream. Are you saying the mainstream LDS or the mainstream? Because you are the status quo. You are the hegemony if you're buying into that crap. Differ from the mainstream is terrible, and our talent to ignore the suffering of others while pretending no wrongdoing has occurred is top notch. I think Kendi's pretty squashed down, but if you talk from like Floyd until 2002 or 3, I guess, until the BLM stuff and all those sorts of things really got exposed, which I think Kwaku at least pretends he's completely ignorant to, the way that those guys completely shafted a bunch of people with money, as they always do, and how Kendi shafted the university he was working at with money, as they always do. But then people decided to say, well, then maybe we can also listen to Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter about how his ideas suck and he's an idiot academic. But
the only smart thing Kendi ever did was to change like his name to Ibram X. Kendi, because it sounds like revolutionary, you know, like that's it. Because I think that's the only thing that really sucked most people into him. Because mostly he's stupid.
So he's playing dumb. It says, no quote of Ibram X. Kendi was ever mentioned. If more, that is the quote. Like they started out with, they said the word Kendi and they said discriminate to correct for discrimination. I mean, you're really playing dumb on that one. But anyway, that's how that stuff kept going. But I want
so you're gonna explain hatchling? Is that what you want to do?
This is from Morgoth, the hatchling. He talks a little slow, but so I can speed it up. But then at the same time, he's got a thick accent, so maybe that will cause a problem. Well,
play regular speed. I like the accent.
You want regular speed since he's got the cool accent? I'll listen to most of this because this one's worth listening to.
Folks. So a few weeks ago, I set off the left-wing Twitter mob, and the hundreds and hundreds of them came at us and abused us and tried to get us banned from everything because of a picture that I posted, which they didn't like. Now, I'll did a video on YouTube and BitChute, and I'll put that below on this one. But what I thought was interesting was that I got so much sort of crap from them that you can break them down into 5 or 6 different archetypes of the left. So if this was like an army, they would be different units in that army, and they've all got a different psychology. And I'm not talking about anything particularly highfalutin here, the globalist masters or anything like that. Just the sort of frontline group, the frontline grunts of the left. And the archetype that I wanted to get into here, which I think may become a series, I might break them all down. It's possible that the people in the comments have got their own ideas, post them there. But the first one that came to mind was what I've come to think of as the hatchling. And the hatchling is a kind of leftist who their talking points and their psychology, it's all fake, of course, but it's as if they have just cracked out of an egg and they've just arrived in the world, and they have no a priori knowledge of the universe, of history, of humanity, of basic common sense, nothing. They're just a complete blank slate, like a little chick who's just cracked out of its egg and is wandering around. And what this does, of course, is put you in the position that you then have to explain all of the universe and where humans interact each other, how groups interact each other, how the media is constructed, how politics works. You then are in a position where you have to explain all of that to the hatchling. And then at each stage, the hatchling is going to sow seeds of doubt and undermine it and play dumb. And act as if, well, this cannot be. This isn't the case, and this is like really fake as well. But I saw it a lot. And an example of this, so there's a story going around at the moment, which is a migrant in Germany has chopped in broad daylight, has chopped his wife's head off with an axe and after running her down or something like that. So you've got like Katie Hopkins and all the sort of the misery porn types posting it all over social media and everything, getting all excited. And then of course, so I mean, it is a bad thing, don't get me wrong. And I understand why it's a bad thing. I understand what's triggered people on the right about that, because they can then say, this is what we have to deal with now. We don't want it anymore. This is awful. But the hatchling will then come in. The hatchling's take on that will be, but it's just a man and it's just a woman. It's one man has murdered his woman. What does it matter where he's come from? What does it matter that he's used an axe? What does his religious background have to do with it? Why is this a story? And so then you're in the position where you have to explain the whole culture of Germany, and is this normal in Germany? And you have what it is. It's a bit like if you're playing squash, and then the idea of squash, because I got slaughtered by an old bloke back in the day, and I didn't understand why. And the reason why was because he just stayed in the center of the court and blasted the ball around and made me do all the running, and I ended up just completely wrecked and thrashed. And this is what the hatchling does. This is what this fake naivety does. It's to hold the center of, make you do all the running while they hold the center of the court. So you are then exasperated by how naive and innocent and dumb about the world they are. And then whenever you give something back to them, whenever you come up with an explanation of something, you explain why, in the case of the story from Germany, you explain why people are wrong, then it's meant with just this blank slate psychology of saying, well, it doesn't matter. Why does it matter? Why do you care about this? Who cares about this? Why are you all so angry about it? It's just a man and it's just a woman. And it's to reduce it all down to the level of being a complete moron. And this is just the first archetype that you have to deal with in these people. So I think I might do more, because I mentioned on the BitTube video as well. And so this is the hatchling. There's also the rational man, which I think I'll do another video on. And then maybe people have also ideas put in the comments of these left-wing archetypes. And the hatchling is the one who pleads complete innocence about the ways of the world. They don't know anything. You have to explain the entire world and all of human affairs to the hatchling while they feign ignorance, because they're coming in and at a sort of where humanity and the world is in a default position of some sort of Disney Wonderland. And then you are in the position of explaining why that isn't the case, while they look down their nose at you. They're disgusting people, of course.
It really describes every time I talk to my brother. Like, he pulls that every fucking time. But also just in general, like every time I've brought up BLM riots to any kind of leftist, they pull that. They're like, "What riots? What do you mean? Well, what even is a riot?" You know, like,
well, they're the voices of the unheard, and they fuck up a bunch of businesses.
They smash up the windows of an immigrant-owned convenience store, and take all the soda, beer, and beef jerky, which is not insured. The immigrants did not get insurance on the soda, beer, and jerky, believe it or not.
Yeah, and as if the insurance pays back everything they lose.
I know. I love how they say that. They're like, it's all insured. It's like,
oh yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah,
well, a bunch of people did reports on how much the insurance actually paid out on most of that stuff, and no, it did not pay back nearly anything.
Yeah, like at best you get like 2/3 of what you lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like in reality.
And we've been dealing with it over on the I guess Thoughtful Saints, where Hayden Carroll put up a poll about sports and women and men in sports, and of course you get all these new hatchlings who are like, why do you care?
That
What's
was
the big deal? There's only 2 or 3 of them. Like, what is this? Like,
that was
what are
my.
you
I got into a big argument with Anthony Miller over that in there, and like I can't even talk to him about it because he switches between hatchling and cluster B. Those are that's what he does, right? So and that's what
Miller?
they all do. Yeah, and he
does.
Well, he was talking to me about like, I was like, I'm just tired of this. Like, I'm tired of people pretending that they were born today and they have no clue what's going. Like, I don't know what the difference between a man and a woman. Like, no, you absolutely know. Everyone knows that a male has physical advantage over a female, especially males.
You have to be a hatchling to think that their little thing of saying like height and weight would equal it out. Like,
I know you're stupid. Like, no, that's what I always say. Like,
and we don't need to
you
start
that
back at the beginning of the universe to explain this.
Well, if there's a 5'6", 170-pound man, a 5'6", 170-pound woman, and they got into a fight, like the man would win. Absolutely. Like, no, like hands down. And if you don't understand that, you're either A, lying, or B, you're too naive to really talk to about this stuff. So he kept like alternating between like, well, this doesn't happen very often and blah blah blah, and then they go to cluster B, the I hate you don't leave me fucking BPD stuff, where he's like, oh, but you know, there's all these Utah lawmakers that are making telling trans kids they don't want them to exist. I'm like, that's not, you're catastrophizing. You're like an insane girlfriend. This trans argument they seriously alternate between arguing with an insane, manipulative, shitty boyfriend and arguing with an insane, manipulative, shitty girlfriend.
Yeah. And that's what I would argue Quaku's kind of doing in that scenario. He's what's this Marxism that you talk about? What did the Black Menaces ever do? Or they're just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. We're all just asking questions. Like he said, it's like you play squash. They're just standing in the middle of the ring and pelting balls all over the place. And if you watch that whole podcast episode, is Cardin's being the one who has to chase the ball around, and he's getting wrecked doing it because they're just standing in the middle, tossing out these things, acting like they don't know anything, and then throwing. But is it really like you give some sort of like just other question to try to throw shade or throw off kilter or some sort of, I don't understand any of the context of what you're talking about. Black Menaces are anti-Mormon? Black Menaces? Wait, but what proof? Do we have a proof that they're anti-Mormon? Do we have a proof that that they're Marxists? Like, what are you saying? What are you talking about here? And then, of course, if you say it gets to BPD, I've noticed Quaku talk about on Twitter, anytime he starts getting upset, he'll switch to, I could see why people leave the church. And it almost kind of becomes like an ultimatum or a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are going to chase me off if you don't buy into my politics here, which I guess you're just
then leave. Did you see? No, that's the nobody's willing to say that. Nobody's ever willing to say that. Like, there was this woman who, like, she claims to be a devout Mormon, right? And I don't know if you saw it. There was an opinion piece that she wrote in the Salt Lake Tribune where she's talking about women should do what I said and all skip church on March 17th because we're not appreciated in the church and we don't have power in the church and all this shit. And it was posted in Ex-Mormon and they're all like lauding it or whatever. And I'm like I just quote this article, like not quote the article, but I summarize it by saying, this church gets morals, like fundamental morals and ethics wrong. And I'm like, okay, leave. I don't know why are you here? Because like, that's what I did. Yeah. I was like, well, it's not true. And some of the things don't line up. So I'm going to leave. How do you demand that everything forms around you?
Yeah. It is a weird thing. But, when you're talking though about how Quaku was always kind of like backhandedly threatening to walk away. And I thought of I forget her name, but Judy Greer's character in Arrested Development, who she's always saying like, "Well, you can say goodbye to these," and she lifts goodbye to these. And
Kitty.
What's Quaku's equivalent of that? Like when he threatens to walk away, like, well, you can say goodbye. Like, what's he offering that, or what does he think he has that everybody will be really sorry to see go?
Yeah. Risto says if you told everybody in the 80s they don't know what men and women are in the 2020s, they would be floored and they wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, they wouldn't believe you. They'd be like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
I like this meme right here. It's basically a meme of what Jared was just saying. You all should change all your core values and beliefs so I fit in.
No, it makes me think of so they talk about like the difference between boys and girls in like stories and how we're centering stories more around like the desires of girls now, because boys they'll see Batman and they will try to become Batman. Girls will see Batman and they'll try to make Batman like them, right? And you see this with like I kind of feel that in my bones in a couple different ways, because like I grew up on Zelda. I love Zelda games, and my favorite ones are like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, all those ones. And they really fucked up. Like it's a tiny little thing, but in Twilight Princess, they had a GameCube version and they had a Wii version. And yeah, and the Wii, they wanted to use motion controls. The thing is, Link has always been left-handed.
Really?
And yeah, Link is left-handed. He always
yeah.
But not anymore. Like ever since that, because Twilight Princess, they're like, well, we don't want the motion controls to mess with, because most people are right-handed. We want them to be able to use their right hand for the Wii remote. The motion controls are garbage anyway. Shut the fuck up. But
they really are bad.
So what they did is they took Twilight Princess, the GameCube version, and they just completely mirrored it. So it's actually weird if you play it on the GameCube first and then you go play it on the Wii next. North is south and south is north.
Wow.
And so ever since then, Link has been right-handed every single game. And it annoys the shit out of me, because I was like, no, Link is left-handed, motherfuckers.
Are you Chris Chan for Link?
I didn't know that.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Chan for Link?
Chris Chan.
I know who Chris Chan is. I don't know.
Oh, it's one of the famous parts. One of the famous parts of Christery is that
Christery.
No, it's the whole thing. Is that you can look it up. There's a video of him where he throws a gigantic fit in a GameStop or something, and it's because he was demanding that Sony fix Sonic's arms, because like they released a version of Sonic where his arms were all the way blue, where it used to be that he had bare arms or something and wore gloves. Or I don't know, but like for some reason this set Chris Chan off. And he went on a whole rampage about it.
Okay, but Link's a good character. Sonic's dumb.
This had a little bit more detail to it. This is Jacob throwing shade, and then Quaku and him. I mean, I don't know how they're gonna like fight this one out or not, but he says bro admits he was lying the whole time and stealing tithing money is what? Because he's there on like scholarship.
Well, he's at BYU.
Yeah. Bro, we knew, but you had black privilege at BYU. That's why you got away with your nonsense. You will forever be the affirmative action hire. Pretty harsh.
That's brutal.
Yeah, well, the reason it's brutal is because, well, I mean,
that's probably true.
He hasn't shown us that he's a genuine talent, so
and
he's not doing himself any favors.
Cougar
there.
Chronicle, which Luke, the guy who was on that podcast, helps run, they labeled out a bunch of different things that were breaking the codes of BYU that Black Menaces got away with and were never addressed about, and labeled them all out, and they wouldn't go do it. And Quaku said, no, I get it. What are you going to do? You can't go do anything to them because, and he basically gave the reasons, like, if you don't do it, you will get shamed. Like BYU will get shamed.
You know, he's telling the church to be a coward. Like that's one of the dumbest things ever. He's like lauding the managerial bullshit in the church that sucks. That was
and then
one of the most annoying things about that.
The ground level kakistocracy. To go back to we haven't brought that up. Short Fat Talker video on kakistocracy this week was really good, and it's just the whole idea that you get these coalitions of angry outsider lowlifes to come and wrestle and rile everything up, and it's always called mid-level violence is what Sam Francis called it, which is basically referring to Antifa types and that sort of thing, and that they really are used as a coalition to come break up higher things on the outside. But these guys were able to do all those different tactics and not ever face anything that anybody else at BYU would have faced for different things that they did, because they had a lot of different complaints. And Kwaku was just saying, yeah, because that's fine, because then you would face the low level violence of all the the activists, then that's fine. Like Quake is just saying that's sensible. Like,
no, I know I'm like, no, this is like, whatever happened to do what is right, let the consequence follow. Man, church is boring, but I remember I hear those like lyrics, and I'd be like roused. I'm like, hell yeah, you tell the truth even if it sucks. Like, you say, no, the Jews are gonna be in my attic, and I'm not gonna lie to the Nazis or whatever. Like, you don't care about the consequence. And he's like, well, it would really hurt the church if they found out that we didn't give black people preferential treatment. Well, fuck them. Right? Like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? Sorry.
Reese says the black ministers, they're super boring. They are. And he says there's tons of videos where they just go up and ask people different questions and then sit there and just kind of give their like a Margie DeLynn podcast.
Very difficult for you. Yes.
This is kind of similar.
I forgot to mention that last week, though. Jordan Peterson's wife had kind of a Margie vibe.
You did have a little bit of a Margie. My defense of that would be, they said she was sick.
Well,
I think Jordan
just
Peterson
for how
was
she's
sick
talking, because I thought you were saying like
no, like
the
at the Q&A thing, they just said, well, someone asked if she was going to be there, and they're like, well, she's actually feeling a bit under the weather. I don't know what that means, but I'm just,
when I think of Margie DeLynn, I think of she's there on the podcast to ask one question and go and cha-ching, it's $1,000 for her to be on the
podcast. We gotta learn how to edit so we can do these.
Yeah, this is kind of similar but tangential, because I don't have the exact clip, but David Archuleta made an announcement that he's releasing a new video called "Let's Go to Hell Together" or something like that. And of course, all these Mormons commented on it, and all these people were upset and oh my gosh, how do you do? But how do you not know that the point of the social media campaign is to get people to say nasty things or upset about it? Like, they want it. Like, nobody more than David Archuleta in that moment wants people to come and pound on him, so then you could get the activists like on his side. Like,
it's like, get over it. I don't know. Like, I don't feel bad for the Mormons there, because that's like it's supposed to be like a romantic thing. Like,
yeah, but at the same time, like, putting on social media, like, he wants that pushback interaction, kind of like when Sarkeesian, Anita Sarkeesian came here and she's, oh, I got a bomb threat. Like, this day and age, like, we've all been social media savvy long enough that we should know by now that the message of, oh, these people attacked me is the goal oftentimes in these media campaigns. Like, how do you not know that anymore? I mean, fall or give into it, but that's all just kind of the I don't know. I do think the woke's kind of going away or being put away, or it's getting whooped a little bit, especially with that
like served its purpose.
Yeah, the Sweet Baby stuff came out. The WPATH stuff came out. Have you guys followed or listened to any of the WPATH stuff?
Yeah, that stuff's been pretty intense.
But some of it already, yeah.
So it's like breaking mainstream that all those people who run WPATH know that those
was
kids
that a
can't
FOIA,
consent.
or how did that stuff get released? Was that like
it was Michael Schellenberger, the same reporter who released the stuff of the government seeping into Facebook? So like, he was given like all the files for not Facebook, for Twitter. Elon gave him, as a journalist, the Twitter files to be able to look into how the government was forcing their hand inside of social media on Twitter. And he released a long expose on that. And then somebody gave him a bunch of insider videos of the WPATH people. And across a lot of time, he broke. If you go to his actual reporting on it, it's huge. It'll take you forever to read. So you're getting these like little trickle outs of people who sat and read and listened to all. And so you hear all these different stories. And it's all mostly that the WPATH people know for a fact that those kids can't consent. They know for a fact that the stuff causes harm. They know for a fact that
they like say
if
it
you start
explicitly.
kids too young, it's 100% they won't orgasm in life. They know for a fact that it causes kids over time. They know all that stuff, and they discuss it amongst themselves in their own.
Another one of my favorite trans right activist thing is when you bring up the whole, like, there's a lot of data to suggest that a kid that gets this stuff will never orgasm in life. Why are you thinking about kids orgasming?
Yeah.
Well, because a life without orgasming would suck, you fucking dick.
Yeah. Not just to mention their reproductive rights with that sort of thing in their life. They admit that they know that those kids aren't able to make choices about their reproductive rights at that age. That if they ask them those questions about it, they just don't even know. Like, what are you talking about having kids? What? Like their kids are too young. They're too young to even comprehend those questions, and they admit it. They admit it in that stuff. It's so crazy. But of course, they obviously thought they were talking on like internal meetings and stuff that would never get leaked. But they're openly aware of the harm that they cause. That's
harm.
Cause harm.
We don't cause harm. We're empathetic.
Yeah. So what do you do? Like the Lynn, all you guys, we've had all that stuff with the bad therapy from Abigail Schreier coming out. Oh, which brings me to the Ryan Long stuff on that was real funny. Did you guys see his little skit?
Yes, that was good.
It's right at the beginning of I'll pull it up. But yeah, so what if your therapy's causing harm? Like you, John DeLynn, your whole world of causing harm stuff is what if it's you that's causing some harm? What if you making kids or just even bringing up the concept of suicide is more likely to drive people to suicide than the thing that you're claiming is driving them to suicide? Your fixation on the suicide is proven to be more likely to drive kids to suicide. So you're causing the harm that you're saying is a so what do you do now that you're
the bad guy, John?
You're the baddie. Yeah.
Oh, he's a baddies.
Man, I can't. The Boys Podcast, like that's a bad name just because
Boys Cast.
The Boys Cast. Okay.
Yeah.
The Boys.
You have it in the. Are you talking about the psychopath one?
Yeah, it's just right at the start of.
Yeah, you've got that one in your. In the chat pretty recently.
In the wire?
You got that one in our chat pretty recently.
Oh, we put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that one is about the psychopath. No, there's a different skit. I'm talking about a different skit.
I don't think I saw that one.
Hold on.
Those two guys have fantastic chemistry. And they've figured out sort of a new formula to do comedy that just works out great.
Yeah, they're
this
good.
It was shared. I think it was by Charles or something.
I still think it's 3-4 years old now, but their racist versus woke skit.
Yes.
Like I still think that is some of the tightest, best satire of my entire life.
It is. It's a great observation, but it's also they're tight. They work very well together.
So well done.
Their emotional intelligence one is one of my favorites ever.
I think it might be removed. Let me find the one that was posted on the Longhouse. I think
our flight was delayed, and I wanted to say, well, we better move on. But luckily, Brittany had the emotional intelligence to tell me that the world is in fact ending, and that we need to make a ruckus for everyone possible.
Yeah, Charles posted it in the Longhouse, so I'll go to that one. Hold on a second here. Present. I haven't seen Charles popping up tonight. He might not.
No, he's going tonight.
Thanks for posting this, Charles, if you're out there.
What the heck, Charles?
If you're out there.
Oops.
I still need to finish Alan Wake for Charles.
Oh, I heard that Alan Woke too is Alan Woke.
I said that too. Charles said he doesn't think it is, but I don't know.
I heard that somebody say that the only reason why you call it woke is the thing where you're kind of forced to play like a minority of color for half the game or something like that. But
damn it.
Welcome back to TraumaCast, a podcast where women talk about their trauma. Now, Brandy, you actually mentioned that you had some trauma on the way here.
Yeah, I was coming in the elevator and I was bumped.
That does sound traumatic.
You know, so much trauma in my life that sometimes I don't realize when an event is traumatic.
Now, I can sense that you're repressing the trauma associated with the bumping, but at some point, you're going to have to explore that trauma in depth if you want to feel whole again. As a child of divorce, I can attest to that.
Oh my God, that must have been so
Very much so.
Yeah, you know, if that trauma's too fresh, I don't
My
want
parents
it.
just walked in the room and said, "We've been waiting for you to finish college to break the news, but here it is."
That's traumatic. As someone who recently went through a traumatic breakup 9 years ago, I can say.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that you were only 9 years into dealing with the trauma of a breakup. Can you talk about it, or is the trauma too fresh?
When you spend every day with someone for weeks and then out of nowhere they just decide to stay with their husband, it can have traumatic consequences.
Poor wounded soul. The fact that you got out of bed this morning to come to this studio is nothing less than heroic.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That trauma shit is
right.
hilarious because we were on the way to the Jordan Peterson thing, and Morgan was like, "Let's listen to some Jordan Peterson." I was like, "Okay." We listened to the Abigail Schreier one, and we
You guys bought the book, right?
well, we pre-ordered it, but it doesn't come out till November.
Wow, it's that far off?
Yeah, it's way far. It's annoying. I wanted to buy it and read it before we did the thing, but it's anyway.
Books
We
take
listened to
so
thing with
long.
we listened to the thing with Abigail Schreier, and they immediately start shitting on trauma-based therapy, and I just started laughing my ass off because I had just finished listening to the John DeLynn episode where he is just gargling the ball bag of trauma-based therapy and how that's the best way to do it, and how you can't. I love listening to people shit on that.
That's so good.
So
you gotta convince everybody that they're traumatized. It's like whatever. You gotta convince them that they're traumatized and that they. It feels so reminiscent of, like, oh, you've repressed these memories, but your father raped you as a child. Because, like, if you say, is there any trauma from your past? And you say, I don't know. I guess it was tough when one of the kids called me fat in school, and he's like, yeah, that's trauma. Like, oh, I didn't realize I underwent trauma. Thank you so much for convincing me that I've had a traumatic life.
Yeah. No, it's kind of like my cousin, kind of a woke lady. She's a few years older than me, and I get in a lot of discussions with her about this stuff. But I remember, like, you know, I was talking to her about something, and I think we're talking about like American Trump and racism, and she told me about how my aunt and uncle were actually totally racist against me and my family because we were Brazilians, and I'm just like, no, I was there. Like, no, like you had to like tell me that it happened. And I'm like, and I know she was just making it up. Like, I know it never really happened or whatever. Or they maybe just made jokes about us that were based on us being Brazilian, which is just not the same thing as being racist, you know? But like, yeah, like it's like just that, you know, she thought she had to tell me, oh, by the way, you were like, you know, a victim of racism because of white Mormonism. And it's just like, no, I wasn't. No, I was not.
No, I heard him one time. They made a joke about Brazilians. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you informed me that I've underwent trauma.
Yeah,
it's gonna be the title of my book. Thank you for informing me of my trauma.
I've been informed.
The mass line of the wage gap came back up this week.
Oh Christ! Yeah, when are we gonna get back?
Amazing. Yeah, we were just talking.
When are we gonna get back to police brutality?
Yeah, it'll come back. They all come back in a circle.
They do. I swear to God, the cycle is speeding up.
That's what they call like the mass lines. Well, it speeds up because it gets squashed down further, but it's something like
that's what I'm saying. I feel like they're all like we're cycling through them a lot more quickly than we used to, and it feels like at some point the normal people are gonna the normies are gonna start to notice that.
Well, this is a normie.
Wait a minute, we're just cycling through this shit.
Oh yeah, they'll notice of the cycle. I wish. This is my mom posting this. My mom's a normie. Like she's a total normie. She just kind of like gargles in some MSNBC here and there. But it's women who value control of their bodies, equal pay, and respect know what to do this November. That's my very Mormon mom who voted Republican her whole entire life, but then she got the ick from Trump, getting a little bit of the ick from the Trump, and now you just gargle like all the leftist propaganda. So of course, like you know, I popped in on it just saying, what on earth is meant by equal pay here? I know what they mean to you. The fake argument is that there's discrimination in pay. Boy golly, if there is, we should pass a law. Oh, we did in 1963. It's called the Equal Pay. maybe propagandists or things that they think some part-time journalist who could have her job done by AI while eating bonbons thinks they're owed the same amount of pay a construction superintendent putting in 90 hours a week in the mud and wants nanny government to enforce that. And it just went into like a longer thing with all that. But then I noticed like Scott Adams noticed it, and he was kind of saying the thing too is like everybody pretending they don't get this are just newborn hatchlings. They're just doing the hatchling game again. Like it's cycled around again. Everybody already knows the answer to this. Everybody's already been through it. But he has on why it still comes up.
It's literally comparing an apple to an orange. So, more men are in, let's say, STEM jobs. More women might be in, let's say, jobs that are more nurturing or taking care of people, sociologists and stuff, and they make different money. But I thought every educated person knows that, but it turns out there's a lot who don't. And do you know why this story persists? Even though so obviously taken out of context and not true. It persists because nobody can tell batshit crazy women the truth. It's just too dangerous.
Yeah. Which brings me back to like we're saying the I don't know how much of I can play this, but Ryan Reagan clip. How much do you think I could play of Brian Regan? He's a stand-up comic. You know Brian Regan.
Yeah, I know who he is.
I've got this clip from him. This is maybe I should do. It's my I've got another autistic of the week, but this is autist of the week.
Oh, Brian Regan is definitely an autist. He is a favorite of like he exploded in Mormon world in like 2007 or something like that because he's a clean comic,
Yeah.
Precursor to Jim Gaffigan, basically. He came to Idaho Falls and made a joke about when he landed in our airport. he's like, okay, where do I go to get my bags? And they said, the terminal. And he said, which terminal? And they laughed. The terminal, man.
The terminal. Where's the volume? Come on.
You playing it?
You're not playing?
No, you don't even have the screen pulled up.
It says view this tab in StreamYard. Hold on. Let me just stop it and restart it.
We're just seeing us.
That one was actually something was going weird because I did it right that time. Hold on a second.
Really?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me resend it. Redo it. Now do you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do when somebody says something I don't agree with. I don't know what I'm supposed to do as a person. I've always grappled with that. I walk up, this woman says, animals are smarter than people. I'm like, oh, jeez. I just got here. I look at the others like, anybody want to take this? Low-hanging fruit. Over at that little circle. Somebody could step up to the plate here so I can hang around for a little longer than 2 minutes. But nobody else is even looking up. They're shuffling their shoes, trying to figure out the dynamic. They must work for her. Something's going on. But I couldn't say nothing. But I didn't want to make a big deal out of it either. I don't know these people. So I decided to make a light-hearted joke. So I said, oh, how do animals do on the SAT test? just a little ha-ha-ha. I didn't get the ha-ha-ha. I just felt the temperature drop. And this woman glares at me and says, animals are smarter than people.
The wage gap exists. I got that answer back. Like one of the persons answering back to me. The wage gap there is a difference in pay. It exists.
Usually what I get is either that or it's the fact that you're asking this question indicates that you're part of the problem. I got that today on like that cringy boomer dude that runs the God Facebook page wrote,
"Oh man,
who's one person? Oh, he does. Who's one person who deserves an apology?" And half the answers were women. Like they just said women. And
there's one person. All of women is all the one person.
No, and I asked one of them, I was like, from? And she said that. She was like, the fact that you're asking that question tells me that you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
I was like, what have I done to women? And of course she didn't answer because like it illustrates to them right away that they're like, oh, what I mean is that you're just by virtue of being male guilty of original sin of patriarchy.
And we don't like men. Men are bad.
Riley Blake says, I'm an Exmo and I'm glad I found your channel because many Exmos are leftist snobs and I'm a libertarian. Welcome. There are dozens of us.
Oh, there are dozens.
There are dozens of us. 1,001.
You are 1,001.
Case closed. Well, I can't take that. But before I could say anything, she said, what about the beavers? Forcing me to say, what about the beavers? There was no other line on my script at that point. Nothing can ever follow what about the beavers except another what about the beavers. What about the beavers? What about the beavers? So she explains to me, she said, the beavers are smarter than people. They know how to all get in the water, and they all know how to gather sticks and bring them to one area, and they know how to put mud on their tails and slap the sticks together, and they can affect the flow of a river. Hoover Dam.
Yeah. So then these
What are you
were
looking
talking
for?
again.
Oh, my assistant. You have one?
Two. I have two assistants.
How much do you pay them?
Each?
Yeah.
I think my male assistant I pay 10 grand a month. My female assistant I pay her 70% of that, whatever that would be. So 7 grand a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you?
What's that?
10 grand feels expensive.
10 grand a month for my guy assistant, 7 grand for the female assistant because of,
She's obviously worse, right?
No, she's much better.
Okay. She works less than her.
She works significantly more.
Yeah.
Her output is higher.
Yeah.
Her intelligence level is higher. Her efficiency is higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't make the rules.
Yeah,
Biden
I
does,
know.
dude. Just doing what the press says.
I think that's fair. What do you look?
Who is she? I swear to God, I know her. I've seen her in a couple things, but
Yeah, she's been kind of famous. She's the one where that one girl was saying, thought that she said magical or something like. What was that? Remember we had it.
Oh yeah, yeah. She thought she called it was like, and so you're a magician, a musician. It's like, what the fuck that? I ain't do no magic.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a bunch of like different comedians on here and there on her whatever thing she does. There's one where her and Bobby Lee. She
You can
says,
tell her comedic timing is actually great because like the
she
way
says
that she made the girl, the way that she made that woman repeat that she said magician, and then just like looked at the camera. And you're like, okay, she knows what she's doing. I don't know her at all, but.
she had one where she's told Bobby Lee she could beat him in an arm wrestle, which is actually kind of actually I got it right here. I'll just here you go. Want to see it? Here it is. Here's me.
Don't.
Are you married?
No, why?
Just asking. It was a question.
I'm an old Korean fat man. It's hard.
Have you dated anyone?
In my fucking life?
Yeah.
In my fucking life. Yes, I've dated girls in my life.
That's not the
Yeah,
one
you
I
said
want.
you're
There's
an
one
old
where
Korean
she
fat
challenges to an
man.
arm
I was just
wrestle,
wondering if you've ever dated.
which I think would be good because it shows you what happens when a girl like that who's taller than Bobby Altoff arm wrestle Bobby. Was it Bobby Lee?
What the fuck?
I like them dumb?
No.
Okay.
You're
Yeah,
not
I
very
don't.
intimidating, so what do you try to be?
I'm not.
You're like shorter than me.
I know, but still, I'm stronger.
No, you're not.
I can beat you in arm wrestling.
No, you couldn't.
100%.
Lay down.
All right.
This is really uncomfortable.
I should post this in the one where they said like height and weight should matter, right?
I know.
Yeah.
No, wait. Stop.
What?
Stop. You have to come closer. Are you starting?
Yeah.
This is what you've got. Okay, you won.
Okay, I know.
You are really ugly. You heard me.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just like, I saw them up close, and I
But
was
I
like,
would
yeah.
just snap your legs. If in a war,
Yeah.
if we were in Nam, dude, I saw her, dude. We'd be in the bush. Look at that one over there. Yeah? We snap her leg. So easy. No, we live in civilized America. I would never do that. Give me a high five. Okay.
What do you do for fun?
I play video games.
I see that.
Yeah, Starfield.
I see.
Yeah. Do you work out? No.
Damn, she's pretty
Obviously,
good.
a way old, short.
She doesn't laugh at her own jokes. She just said it's really deadpan delivery.
But that's your answer right there too. Of how would you do for strength? That guy doesn't work out. He just plays video games.
I know.
The arm wrestle lasted 0.5 seconds.
So every now and then there's like seriously once every couple months there's a story on Reddit where like a woman tells her Reddit boyfriend like I could kick your ass or whatever, and he's like, well, no, you couldn't, and she'll be like, no, do it, and eventually he gives in, and he's like, okay, we can like do a brief like wrestle or whatever, and it just easily defeats her, and it just shakes her entire worldview. I mean, that's why I say like I think men understand better the power difference in strength between men and women, because they're the ones that go easy. Like if you're a woman, all you've ever experienced is like your boyfriend going easy on you when you're wrestling or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can almost understand women not quite getting the difference in strength. But men, any man who tells you that like I don't know what the difference between a trans woman and a cis woman is, like they're lying to you because they've wrestled with a woman before. I've even done it. Like Morgan did it one time. She just asked me, she's like, you never like actually wrestle with me much. Like I'll try to wrestle you to the ground and stuff, and you just don't really do much. Like I want you to try. I just want to see what it's like. And I, just pinned her pretty easily. And it's not like a bragging thing. It's just like reality. Yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, okay. That was pretty easy.
It's so tough that there's a reality out there, and we have
but it didn't like the
telling
thing. It
people
didn't
about
shatter her worldview because she wasn't like saying I could kick your ass. She was just curious. It's a curious thing, and honestly,
it's okay to be curious, ladies.
Oh yeah.
All right, here's my actual artists of the week. This is just one little screenshot of these two guys perfectly lined up two pieces of bread on two different sides of the world and made an earth sandwich.
Is that recent? That this actually going to happen?
I don't know. But they have it all perfectly precisely measured their negative 3.686773 in New Zealand to Spain.
New Zealand and Spain. It's weird to think that those are on opposite sides of the world. It's
Yeah.
like you just think of things in terms of like East and West hemispheres, you know, like
New Zealand.
Wow,
that's true.
I like this. These guys pointed out here that this guy in the church video, when he sees Jesus's hands, it looks like he says, "No manches." Check it out. Like watch the guy in the video. It's coming up. Look at this. I think it's this guy coming right here. No manches. You don't want to see it for a second right there. Oh. Man,
I go back further.
No manches. I think that's what he really said, too. No manches.
just do bad lip reading of Mormon movies.
No manches. It's got to be what he said.
It couldn't be anything else.
That was a funny one. Anyway, though, what other stuff's going on out there?
So is there nothing at all like cringy or out of the ordinary from the Zelf bullshit that they did?
No. There's 2 hours of their exit story, which I'm positive they've done elsewhere a million times. Maybe they never did on their own channel. They only did it for their game or something. It's just their basic leaving story. Here's a weird little thing. This is on KSL. This is my cousin and his channel. YouTube channel encourages family bonding through time through art. And
it's a revolution.
It's a revolution. Hang out and do art with them.
You can hang out with your kids and do activities.
Wild stuff, man. I've got some math.
So flying from Madrid to Auckland, we're looking at 25 hours of flying and $2,400, about $1,000 or $100 an hour to get from Madrid to Auckland. I just had to know.
Flip's got to look it up for sure.
It's like, what would it be like? Like, oh fuck, I'm in Spain and I need to be in Auckland as soon as possible. What are my options? And that's what we've got.
I got to run to the restroom again. But tell me what you think about this. This clip was making it all over TikTok because Brad Wilcox was just
probably going to start repeating on us once you.
Okay, I better not then. Here, I'll just watch.
Yeah, so you can we'll just talk until you get back.
We'll watch it first and then tell me what you think about it.
Oh, okay.
This is like 50 different people commented on this little comment from Wilcox.
Yeah, I've been hearing about Wilcox again.
Church a little while ago.
Is that loud?
And I said, why? He says, oh, because it seemed popular on TikTok.
Okay. Do I want to talk about how men who
that was the upsetting thing is that he said it seemed popular to leave the church.
It seemed popular.
Positions of patriarchal power who are left unchecked and unchallenged for decades after decades will eventually dwindle into a state of complete delusion, living in a figment of their own imagination. Yes, I would like to talk about that, and I will talk about that. But for now, what I'd like to point out is that we're actually observing why ex-Mormon TikTok exists. For as long as the church has been around, people who leave the church are vilified. Lazy learner, decommissioned temple, rebellious child, virulent virus. Oh, and now we just want to be popular.
That was just you, lady.
Guys, Brad Wilcox, President Nelson, this is why we speak. Because your behavior is modeled by our family members. When you demean people and you don't allow them to leave with any dignity, knowing full well that our family members are going to follow your example, well, what's happened is we all have a mic now. We don't have to sit here quietly while you make up stories about us. You know, and I know, and everyone else knows that people are not leaving the church because it's popular on TikTok. So if you
Except I don't know that. Like, I think.
I don't know better than you, lady.
I think that like people probably are leaving because it's popular on TikTok. I I really kind of doubt that a kid just straight out told him that. I don't know. Maybe kids are more retarded than I think, but
Yeah, that's true.
that
Yeah.
seems fucking weird. But like, I don't know. The second she starts saying like, the men in the patriarchy just get completely caught up in their own delusion. Okay, hang on a second. And this is my trump card. Maybe
Nobody
it's a
ever
cheap shot,
checked that
but
guy in
you,
decades.
I'm positive you believe that men can get pregnant.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
that's true.
like, how am I supposed to take seriously anything you say about people's delusion?
Yeah, no, but I mean, she thinks
Well,
that guy
and-
went his
and
whole
you-
life without anybody ever challenging him. Like, how absurd is that?
And this is the thing with religious people, though, is that like they fully admit that their worldview is based on magic.
Yeah.
I can deal with that if a guy's like,
Well, not Jacob. Jacob doesn't. Jacob Hansen does not believe that.
Well, so I don't know. So you gotta. I need it. You might find it interesting. Did you ever listen to Cleon Skousen's "The True Meaning of the Atonement" talk?
No, I mean maybe a long time ago, but not the.
You would know if you did. You might find it interesting. Maybe I'll find it and send it to you. But I feel like most of Mormons talking about deep doctrine is basically Mormons trying to explain their religion completely materialistically.
Yeah,
because that's basically what this talk was. It was Cleon Skousen, and he's an interesting guy, and he's talking about the atonement and how it worked. And basically what he says is like that you haven't been around Thoughtful Saints because you left it, but they've been talking about I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's basically the idea that like somebody can be punished in your stead, right? Is that a true thing? Can somebody be punished in your stead? Does that actually satisfy justice?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
sentenced to death and I take your death sentence for you. And they're saying, most people are saying no. But the atonement kind of says yes, right? In the standard Mormon way that you would perceive it. But Cleon Skousen basically he says that like, no, it's not that it can pay for it. He claims that there's intelligences in, so intelligences come before spirits, right? You're a body now. Before you were a spirit, and before that you were an intelligence. And the intelligence is the eternal being. And he basically makes it sound like an intelligence is like an atom, a particle of matter. You know,
this is all ringing a bell. I swear, I think.
And that like so like what the priesthood is when somebody is worthy, they command so much respect that these intelligences will listen to them. So when Jesus turned water into wine, when Jesus turned water into wine, it was because he was so worthy that those intelligences respected him enough to just.
They were all just little cards going, dog.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Let's turn into wine now,
I'm
man.
gonna be wine, dog.
It's really just grape juice, though. And they change their chemical structure and become that. And basically, Jesus' suffering was him saying, like him suffering and suffering and suffering because like the intelligences were so offended by man's fallen state that they would kill any man. They would basically engulf you in flames if you were in front of God. And Jesus suffered so much that finally the intelligences said, okay, we don't get it, but we see that you love them so much that we will no longer burn them when they're in the presence of God. That's a short version of it, but that's his.
Like if that was just like the exposition of like a science fiction Star Wars fantasy series, I'd be like, okay.
No, it sounds cool.
But like the fact that it's like somebody actually trying to explain reality is like, oh come on.
Okay, so that I didn't hear what you guys were saying, but just to go along with that, I feel like this is John Larson talks all the time about being totally done with it because he moves on as if he doesn't still just get all riled up and angry and emotional about everything in the church. But I really don't think you've moved on from the church until you get to a point where you can grant them everything. You can say, yeah, kids leave on TikTok because it's just popular. There's all sorts of problems when people leave religion and they lose community. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's all sorts of problems with people going woke and becoming back and turning their religion into politics. Yeah. That's all true.
I told my
Moroni found plates. That still doesn't solve that for me. You know? But I'm fine with you saying all those other things. Like, fine.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's true. Some kids leave because it's just popular. Yeah. Yeah.
My aunt, I told my aunt about the lady who was, what we had the juxtaposition of the two tweets of the like, I'm so happy I left the toxic patriarchal nightmare of Mormonism with the last time I moved, 30 people helped, and now no one will help me move.
That's the funny. Well, and they get mad. Man. They get fucking mad that nobody. How come they're not coming out? Because you didn't tell them that you're moving.
And also,
before you were at a meeting with them every fucking Sunday. And you were going to be, we're moving this week. And then they say, we're going to send people to help you. You're not there anymore. So how do they fucking know?
But also, like, you told them all that they were terrible people, that were engaged in a patriarchal nightmare of misogyny and toxicity and
EPD.
gay teen suicide.
Leave me. I'm not an anti-Mormon. I hate you. Don't leave me. I hate you.
Yeah, you guys are all oppressive, sexist, misogynist pieces of shit. Please help me.
And validate everything I ever thought. And one of the things that I think is that you're all a bunch of numbskull dipshits. Please validate me with that, or you are going to cause me some trauma.
Numbskull dipshit.
Numbskull dipshit. I don't think I'm a numbskull dipshit. I think I'm right. You're traumatizing me. I got some home math. Leslie says trying to debate the wage gap with most women is like trying to debate the Book of Mormon geography with Rod Meldrum. That sums up everything that we're talking about here, right?
That's it, exactly. Yeah.
Leslie must have found us
two sides of stuff that's just hard to wrap your brain about being true at all when you look at evidences, and for some reason, if you leave one, you got to believe the other. Supposedly, yeah.
No, Leslie must have found us through Morgan's channel, actually, because she, I don't know, has mentioned a few times that to bring back Sister Jensen. That's a character that I did on Morgan's channel.
Oh.
So Morgan talked about it before. I think that was a character I did when I first tried to get into YouTube. And then I got lazy because editing is a nightmare. But
yeah, it's hard.
It was a woke feminist named Tina McDankers, but then we and then I just kind of
McDankers.
What?
How'd you land on McDankers?
It was just kind of like the first thing I thought of, but then we I don't know, I stopped using it, and Morgan was like, can we just use that for my thing? You can be that but Mormon. And so that became Sister Jensen. And then Morgan mentioned recently, like, she's like, if Sister Jensen left Mormonism, she would be insufferably woke.
Well, that's I brought up weird names of Mrs. Dankers, because I was thinking about this earlier. That because many years ago, I had a job where I had occasion that I ended up talking to a guy. So none of us are into rap, but in the '90s there was a rapper called Timbaland, right? And one of his crew was a guy called Magoo, and because I happened
to do that on purpose.
Well, his name was Magoo, but that's what I wondered, because like his real name was Marvin Barkley, and maybe I'm white, but I feel like Marvin Barkley is a better rap name.
It would be.
That's a way better rap name, yeah.
You just reminded me, because I used the word Magoo when I was talking about the Huell Howser stuff with Jonah Barnes and Cardin and those guys trying to make very mundane Mormon things sound cool and super cool and exciting and cool, dude, and stuff. I don't know if I'll go into that or not, but Jonathan Streeter made some evil apostate AI art.
That's good stuff.
Yes, I too am an evil apostate. That was kind of the same sort of a YouTube channel goofiness. Came up.
What time? 2.5 hours.
What's that?
You doing a home math?
We're wrapping down. You want to see? You want to wrap it up? Or you want to see home math? Or
dude, I'll keep.
I always like home math.
We'll do a home math, or I could talk about my Huell Howser rant about those guys trying to make boring stuff exciting.
We can do both.
Let's go and find a whole math. Here comes the whole math. Present share screen. Sometimes I can't even remember what the topic was. I think I do.
I think it's so funny that Korean women are so done with Korean men that they're literally just deciding to die out. Y'all heard of the 4B movement? I'm a big fan.
The 4B movement stands for these four things, which mean these things. It's basically Korean things. It's
4B movement in South Korea.
four things, which mean these
Sex with men, child rearing, dating men, marriage with men.
things. It's basically Korean feminism, which is cheaper and more efficient. The 4B movement initially gained recognition on Twitter in 2019 because of course it did, through various feminist social accounts because of course it did. And they are focused on envisioning a future without men because of course they are. The cornerstone of feminism is that everything is oppressive. The 4B movement had an escape the corset movement. The word corset is used here for the societal mechanisms that bind and repress women, like toxic beauty standards. Just like in Western feminism, toxic means anything I don't like. I need all of this from you, but you need something from me. That's toxic. I am the table. This, of course, is not toxic.
Korean women literally just gave up on their men. They're like, they're fucking assholes. They're not going to change. So we're all going to go extinct.
That's where she's wrong. She says that Korean women are mad at Korean men, but they're actually mad at God. And if you don't like that word, just physics or whatever, it's the same thing. This is a hierarchy of creation. It goes from God.
That's one of the things I was arguing with the wage chick, which was who started pushing back on me, which once again, I've mentioned this a million times. The person I argued with on the wage gap was one of the people who, for sure, when I was young, 30-ish years ago, shamed me for the satanic panic and listening to metal music. And I always used to joke and say around here, like, it's not, when I'm talking about these people who are woke-splaining me and woke-scolding me this stuff nowadays, I'm not hypothetically saying they're kind of the same people who are kind of the same busybody women. No, they are the same busybody women who are now woke-splaining me and woke-scolding me everything, who freaked out and tattled on me if I listened to Megadeth.
Universe, all the way down through man to
Oh, but one of the things I talked to her about is you guys are mad at the cosmic problem, the Thomas Sowell thing. You're mad at the universe. You're not mad at somebody being discriminatory to you. You're mad at the universe that having children makes it so you can't show up to work. And why should all of us?
One of the most. It's like one of the most meaningful things I ever heard was like it's like a random. I call Marcus Aurelius a non-philosopher because like everyone loves him because he doesn't get into the weird philosophy shit. He basically just says things all the time like, look at what you're mad at. If what you're mad at is reality, then you're fucking dumb. And that was one of the things. It's like, like you're just mad at reality. And there's nothing I can do about that. Nothing anyone can do about reality. Like if you're mad that women are less strong on average than men, I don't know what to tell you. If you're mad that men are like have a more of a proclivity toward math, then I don't know what to tell you because that's just reality. Stop being mad at it. Like if you have a higher proclivity toward math, just do math and don't worry about the numbers.
Well, if they form a big enough voting block, they can vote for all of us to give them more money because of all that stuff, I guess, or more programs or more sorts of things. I heard this other guy on the podcast this week mention about, the idea that most women are hypergamous. They want to have equal wage, equal money, but they want their man to make more money. So they're in a problem of like, so 60% of college degrees, and it's going up, are going to women nowadays. And they want all their men to have more money than them. Like they're creating an untenable position for themselves.
Woman to child to the natural world and all the way back up. It goes both ways. Basically, the universe just is the way it is. Like you can't get rid of gravity, and men have to deal with that directly and build things from it. And we also give approval and attention and validation to women who then provide nurturing to communities and children who
It's sexist.
Their role is to be the learners, and they provide creativity and new ways in developing new things to do with the natural world, which is how we get new things like the internet or different types of cheese or whatever. But in the same way that man cannot simply ignore the rules of gravity, women cannot simply ignore what men need from them either. Otherwise, we can't do our jobs. That's just how reality works. So what these women are saying is, I want resources and money and power and everything. I just don't want to provide men with what they need in order to continue creating them. Usually what keeps this whole thing going is that men provide women with approval, attention, and validation. So basically, if men don't follow the rules of the universe, then they don't get what they need from the universe. That's just physically how life works. You'd need to know when to plant seeds and
You see like a hatchling pop up and say, "What are you talking about? What do you mean here? What are you saying? What are you like, man and man has to deal with the universe?"
stuff.
You think that? Wait a minute. You think that men want to build things more often than women want to build things?
Doesn't a woman has a woman built the thing? Doesn't a woman build things sometimes?
Yeah, I am perplexed by this.
I've heard
So,
that.
have you? I love the like the how often people are asking about per capita or whatever. Like, anytime we talk about IQ or whatever, some woman talks about it in Twitter, and then a guy asks her, on average, American women are like 5'6", and she'll say, "But I'm 5'8".
And usually when women don't follow the rules made by men and give men what they need, then men don't provide women with what they need in return. But now women have these cell phones that are providing them with all of this approval, attention, and validation, which makes them think, I don't need men anymore, even though men are still making all the stuff. So because women are no longer providing this, men are no longer providing this, which means no one can have any of these, and women are saying, okay, we'd rather die. That's what quotes like this mean. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. That means if you don't do as the universe demands, then you're not going to get anything from it. So man has to build society according to the rules of reality, and women have to fit into society according to the rules of society. And then children have to get good grades or they don't get ice cream or whatever. It works the same way. The Bible uses that word a lot, rebellious. And what that means is I want the benefits, but I'm not going to follow the rules. That's why this table argument is so important. I want you to provide.
The table argument is, what do you bring to the table? And then a bunch of feminists start saying, I am the table.
No, they actually get really mad about it. Like, they find it to be the most insulting thing you could possibly ask.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know, like, I guess if you just blatantly ask that on the first date or whatever, it's kind of a cunty thing to do. But like, if a woman asks that on the first date, that's fine.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, I've told people, like, going on dates nowadays, it feels like you're just like under a spotlight, like getting like a police interrogation of like what you're being offering or not.
Me with things, but I'm not going to provide anything back. Imagine if you were saying, I want food to grow, I'm just not going to do any farming. That's what this is illustrating. If you don't do what you have to, then you don't get anything back. And if you don't provide men with what they need in order to make food and fix buildings and stuff, then they're not going to give you any of those things, and then everyone dies. I'm not saying that men don't have work to do. I don't know what's going on in Korea. Maybe the corset is too tight. Maybe men need to start providing something new. But if it's anything like American feminism, it's probably all get, and never where are we getting this from? And every time you break that chain, you just die off.
Which they literally are. By the way, Korea has like the lowest birth rates in the world. But I just think that's so funny.
There's no way they're lower
Korean
than Japan.
as an ethnicity.
Korea is the
about to
lowest,
go
and they're
away.
saying Korea is in a death spiral. Like, they might not.
Lower than Japan?
Korea is in like a major death spiral. I've heard a lot.
Holy
of
shit!
They're in a major crisis.
Korea birth,
like specifically South Korea.
Yeah, South Korea. Yeah, North Korea has different problems.
They say within like 2 generations, it's going to not exist.
Holy shit, that's fucking sad.
Yeah, for really real. Like, they're facing like complete civilizational collapse.
I know, like, Japan is starting to like try to like just form initiatives to be please have kids. Like, they're basically the pandas of humans.
In South Korea, world's lowest fertility rate plunges again, and I've seen people label it out. They're like, we're talking 80 years complete collapse. You know?
Jesus.
Is that over? That one's over. Yeah.
I guess we'll be getting a lot of immigrants then.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, the whole
we'll be
man.
collapsed by then anyway, so who cares?
Will be Korea.
I don't know. I
us.
talk a big game with this whole we're gonna collapse as a civilization soon, but I really don't act like I think that because man, I I do zero prepping. I did finally buy a second gun, so I guess there's that.
Two guns.
I do have 2 guns, so don't try to rob me.
We got a second bonus home math this week, which is this one I actually shared with the wage girl, the wage shamer who
Did
once
she
was
watch
a
it?
really, I doubt it. She didn't say
There's
anything
no
back
fucking way.
Um,
She probably saw that it said home math and just like this is
Yeah.
gonna reinforce the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Where are the men with the money that you speak of?
You got rid of them, remember? You said it wasn't fair that men made more money, and so you insisted on an equal pay, and you asked for jobs and school and money to be distributed towards you. And so the men who had money now make not as much as you. You know, just like you wanted. That's what you wanted, right? You might notice I use the same drawings every time because it's the same thing every time, that men used to make more, and then you wanted equality, but men still have to.
Like it's more equality for you.
Okay, so now they have less money than you. And it's not because you're doing better, it's because you ask to be given for free. Here, let me show you.
We don't need empowering quotes. We need promotions.
There, you see that? It says the future is female promotions. Now, maybe you could check my math on this, but if the future is female promotions, then that would mean not male promotions. And promotions are where you get money. So then the future would be female money. Not like this, more like this, or even farther. So then the men with money would become the men without money. Because you have it.
At not one point in my life have I ever met a man that made as much money as I did or more.
You sound upset. We are also upset.
As a matter of fact, in my 40s, they have turned into the most pathetic group at a level of high school, early 20 struggle love.
Yes, that's exactly what happened to me. In school, girls got bonuses and I did not. And when I looked for work, girls got bonuses and I did not. And then in the dating world, girls got bonuses and I did not. So I ended up with not very much. I'm about to be 40, and this was going to be me if it wasn't for YouTube. And it's not because I didn't do these things. It's because when I did them, they told me, sorry, get at the end of the line. And then I stayed at the end of the line forever. And so did all of us, which makes you confused for some reason because you got what you wanted.
And they think that established women with financial stability are going to date them.
See, there's where you're wrong. I'm going to let you guess what this represents. It's not our income. And that's what happens when you say that this isn't fair. And then you use this to make this happen. And then you say that you're too good for everyone. Too bad for you.
Where are the men with money?
You them.
That guy's the best.
Yeah, I doubt she watched it. And if she did, I'm a bigot or something now too. Anyway,
yeah.
So. Anyway, that's the home math. Did you guys see this meme that was making the rounds this week? The bathroom when ex-Mormon walks up to a guy.
Yes.
I was his own leader and I was the president. I did Trek 4 times and I was a statewide counselor. I stayed out of the required director and
That is a good one.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm tripped out about flying from Spain to.
You're still stuck on
That is weird. When you look at the flat map, they look not.
No, but like they are totally antipolar.
You have to get a hold of a globe to say.
Yeah, like the flight's like you can either go to Doha or Singapore between Madrid and Auckland, which is actually pretty good. Those are both basically almost exactly like the line. But man, yeah, because the Doha to Auckland flight is like 17 hours. Can you imagine?
Troy says we're only a dozen years from AI dominance, so Korea is fine.
Yeah.
AI will force us to reproduce, Risto said. Oy, oy, oy. Well, did you know that money is just a construct?
What? Money?
In fact,
Hi,
look at this.
everybody. Hi,
People are like,
Harari.
we can just eliminate everyone's debt. Dude, last night at 3 a.m., we decided it would become 2 a.m. This is all in your head.
Who said that? Was that
Nobody.
Just a meme.
When we
It's
talk
a meme
about
out there. It's
student
just a
loan
Harari
debt-
concept. Money's just a Harari concept.
But when we talk about student loan debt, nobody ever considers the fact that somebody is going to have to eat the cost. Like, sure,
Well, rich people, duh. They last forever. They are.
It's the
infinite
government
resource.
that'll have to eat and the government is just us. Like it's.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, well, you borrowed money from someone and said you would pay it back. Now you're not paying it back. Should that person pay the money? No, somebody should pay them. Okay, who should pay them? Well, the government. That's you. Like, that's your money.
All right, I'm going to share with you a Tim Dillon goes on a Cardin rant. Are you ready for Tim Dillon to line up with Cardin?
Is this the Huell Howser?
No, maybe I'll do Huell Howser, but I mean the Huell Howser. Did anybody watch Adam Sandler with Huell Howser? Huell Howser was a PBS California guy who would just go to the most boring places in the world and just do terrible commentary on it. Just, wow, look at this. We've got a plaque in the sand. Isn't this the most amazing plaque in the sand? And I was just making a joke that every time Jonah and Cardin go off talking about that stuff, it feels like Huell Howser videos, but they try to put like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle language around it, like cowabunga dudes, look at this, we got a plaque that commemorates Joseph Smith's barn that got destroyed in 1842. And we're gonna take and check it out, dude.
Okay, wait, we gotta stop, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because this is blowing my mind.
Dude, me and my kids, I mean, they're up all night because they're so excited to go see this plaque that's getting put in over in Missouri. Holy banana balls, fellas.
They are just freaking psyched, yo. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, it's so radical and it's so awesome. Like, oh my goodness. But and the Cardin comes in like, what savages? These savages went in and put in a whole plaque. Oh my gosh, the bad A's. Oh. So I heard Tim Dillon go on a boomer rant, and I was like, God, Tim and Cardin are homies.
When she was talking, and then my father goes,
maybe Tim and Cardin are the same person. I can't, like, he's got the hat, he's got the, I don't know, how tall is Tim? It might be.
When she was talking, and then my father goes like this. My father goes, he goes, you know when you really start to pay attention to the weather? When you get a boat. And he goes, because we are on our boat and we are really taking it. And that's their generation of people. Like, that's how, if they are not directly affected, I mean directly affected, they don't give a fuck about anything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is
God.
a selfishness that they invited their realtor to Christmas. My father looks at me and he goes, she's been fighting brain cancer for 20 years. He goes, she's really something. And then I'm like, so they are ghoulish. They're ghoulish. They're
what's the title? I need to know the title.
Death by Boomers.
Okay.
And it'll be about just how they. Where do you get they used to call us fat fox. Like my friend.
I heard somebody say that it's like the boomer generation is like the guy who used all the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll, but left one square, and then got up and left and didn't put the thing
Piece
back.
of shit. No, so where I work, there's no like real tap water because we work out of trailers mostly, and we're taking down nuclear sites. So like we get Arrowhead bottles of water, and they come in these big like square packs. There's a piece of cardboard under like, I don't know, 25 water bottles and plastic surrounding them. And everybody knows that once you take the last water bottle out of there, you have to throw it away. So what like almost all the people do is they'll just open a new packet and leave one water bottle with this gigantic trash bag around it and cardboard underneath it, so that they don't have to like walk 5 steps to their left and throw it away. And I point it out constantly. Like, yeah, I would choose this one, but then I would have to throw shit away. I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, some of the boomers are the best people around, though. I don't know about throwing shade the whole generation, but there is some sense that, especially the ones who like won't like retire from the jobs and are still hanging on to government. And I honestly like look at like the COVID thing a little bit of how like the whole world had to stop and worry about the health of the boomers rather to just entirely disrupt the entire economy. But what you gonna do? Look at this. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting, Sun Tzu. And there's all our transgender generals. Oh man, the weird world we're in. We're in a grandmacracy, and they're making all the generals gay. They're making all the generals gay.
I made a joke about how when I pulled up Twitter, there was it was a tweet from Alex Jones, and it was just a picture of himself with the quote over it that said, "I will eat your liberal ass." Alex Jones, like, I don't know why he posted that, and I thought it was funny that he posted it, so I mentioned it.
I want to play that.
And then,
Alex
of course,
Jones.
everybody in the room had to like have the disclaimer of, "Oh yeah, he's a bigoted piece of shit," and I wanted to buy his game because I thought it'd be funny, but then I thought that I was like, well, I don't want any of the money to go to this like blithering conspiracy. I don't know. Like, and here's the thing: I never watch Alex Jones. I'm sure he's retarded. I don't know, but I know that we charged him $1 billion for being wrong, and that's insane.
I saw our friend Seth put out a thing about conspiracy theorists and write it all out, and of course, all the conspiracy theorists are supposedly, ostensibly right wings. And
amazing how that works.
Okay, but like I like Seth. I do. I love Seth. He's a great guy. He thinks that men can get pregnant. So again, call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, because I think that COVID was mishandled. You believe men can get pregnant. I don't trust anyone. I'm like,
well, I have the flip end of the that thing that Adorno put out forever ago, that because an academic said all authoritarianism is right wings, for some reason that was just accepted in academic circles forever and ever, that there's no left wing authoritarianism. And then recently, in the past few years, some papers had to come out and tell us that, it turns out left wingers can be authoritarian too.
Oh,
what the
Studies
hell?
indicate
it's allowed.
But tell me how everything that we've been talking about tonight is not just also left-wing conspiracy theory. How is the wage gap not a conspiracy theory? It's a conspiracy theory. Quaku's stuff on the Kendi world.
Feminism is a conspiracy theory.
There's some top-down people who are creating the world. Capitalism, Marxism itself is a conspiracy theory. Like there's left-wing conspiracy theories abound everywhere. I like this question by Risto that he put in Latter-day Lobsters. Nobody noticed it. Everybody should notice it and like it. And of course, anything you put up like this gets some long answer from Anthony Mueller. Sometimes I see his long answers. And stuff,
I'm not reading that.
Answers it because he was talking about like, shouldn't the leagues be allowed to choose what they want in or not? I'm like, so are you down with getting rid of Title IX?
I didn't notice that.
Are you do you want to get rid of Title IX? Then we can just decide what stuff, so that we don't have to be forced to like get different. Like, let's just get rid of Title IX entirely. And then there's
Anthony
some
was
long
trying
answer.
to appeal to my libertarianism by
Yeah.
telling me like, well, what do you think that I don't think that private sports leagues should be forced to not allow trans women to participate. And I'm like, okay, that's not what's happening.
You're the one putting the law in, and I'm saying no law. And you're the libertarian.
You are, yeah, you're putting the law in, but also we're not even talking about private sports. Like we're talking
Title IX
like,
is
legislation.
government
We're talking
enforced
about
program.
government.
Yeah, it's a government enforced program that says that they have to have sports for all possible genders, even the new imaginary ones. And
And also, these are imaginary, Anthony.
Yeah.
I know you know that.
But then there's the thing with libertarians that it's always the government puts some sort of thing in, some sorts of conservative right wingers come and say, hey, no, abolish that or get rid of that. We don't like that dumb law. And then that's using the law. It's using the law to abolish the laws. These libertarians are against you using the law to abolish the law. These ostensible libertarians. Like, what?
Oh, you think it should be against the law for a grown man to come into the locker room with your daughter? You know what? Yeah. Fuck you. I don't like. Here's the deal. I don't have a daughter, but if I did, I would not let her go into the locker room alone anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't want Flip and Drag being in the locker room with my daughter.
Yeah.
No offense.
No.
I like Rista's question here though. Does anyone know of a life coach or a therapist for people recovering from a low demand religion?
That's pretty funny.
I didn't like it. I glanced over it. It didn't register to me. Like, that's really funny.
But then of course it gets some big long answer.
Anthony Miller's like, well, yeah, no, that's a serious issue that people might.
We need to look at the nuance, and I'm gonna stop while I tell
because that's the thing. It's like, well, that's things like they've been our entire lives. They've been expanding the definition of what it means to be a victim or a survivor and trauma and all this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, of course we need to consider the victims of low demand religion. It's all awful. We have to help them. Like, yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well,
that's some good ass shit, man.
Alrighty.
We've done about hit it all now. So
cool.
We've covered the left wing conspiracies. Conspiracies
Solved.
abound. Oh, I've got just a couple more pictures that Jonathan made for us. Well, you guys have seen them, but we'll show them to everybody else. Not that one. These are the old ones. Flip, did you have a booze corner?
I did.
These ones.
I was tired.
Like this one. So what's the can say? Is it like bag of nuts or something like that?
It's just I hope they never fix AI's inability to like spell words.
Yeah, I like the random.
It's like you look at the book,
Jardon. Jardon.
It seems like a real one too. I don't like
Whoa, what's
AI's
going on with
inability
his
to do
teeth?
teeth and like how sometimes tongues look like teeth. And
That's
stuff like
terrifying.
Weird. That's weird.
It finally made Kevin ugly.
First time ever.
What booze, Flip? End on a booze corner. That's the only thing we got. Like a snippet of we got Autist of the Week, and we got Jared.
Yeah,
got to do a snippet of his.
Flip, what's your favorite boxed sangria?
I don't like any sangria. Like, you should make your own damn sangria. Because this is the thing about sangria that pisses me off, is that sangria is exactly as hard to make as a salad. Like,
is it?
Have you ever tried Corolla's Mangria?
No, I don't like sweet wine. I don't like sweet shit. But like, so classic sangria is by a cheap but good Spanish red, brandy, citrus peel, stone fruit, cinnamon stick, and like, but the point is like, and that's like traditional stuff, but like you can make them with white wine. Like I
What
once
do they
made
throw in
one.
it? I don't even know what it is.
Sangria, it's fortified wine. Oh, and you can back sweeten it if you want to. It's wine that's fortified and has flavor added. It's become like, there's like this cheap stuff that is like, I mean, it's the same thing, but it's really just sugary, cheap, juicy stuff. But like, cause yeah, no, the first time somebody came in the store and they said, "Where's the sangria?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? You make sangria, just that." Like you go to the store and like, and the thing is like also making sangria is fun because like you think about like,
Wait,
oh well,
so, okay, how do you make sangria?
Clip. Do
It's
you think
literally
you could
like
make like a wine corner for Jacob Hansen's groups?
Sure. Yeah, easily. Yeah, no,
Offer it up.
This member of the church really likes making wine.
Flip's got a wine tasting group. Anybody interested?
We spit it all out because
like so
Word of
literally you're throwing a big party. I don't know how many people you have, but we'll just say you have a few people. And so you get a punch bowl. You
Jungle
get two
juice.
bottles, kind of. Yeah, you get a couple of bottles of inexpensive Spanish red or any red, whatever's good. And then you fortify it with like, maybe like a cup, half a cup, depends on how crazy you want to be. With brandy is traditional, but you can really use anything, but brandy's the traditional thing. And then you kind of let it macerate with like I said, orange, like citrus peels are very common. And then like stone fruit, like peaches, like slice them up, peaches, apricot, whatever. And just kind of let it, yeah, it is jungle juice. It's just a little less horrible.
So it doesn't sound that doesn't sound like you're actually making sangria.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought
that's
you're just
all that
adding
sangria
juice
means.
to wine. I thought you meant
No.
we were gonna make the wine.
No, because sangria is I mean, it's like a lot of things, it means different things, but basically sangria is fortified wine with fruit, usually sweetened. That's usually what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Risto asked about favorite gin.
So I'm not really big on gin, but
What was that? What was that gin you brought to Chris's place that one time when we?
That's what I was
watched
about to talk about. I like that kind of thing a lot. That was a very small batch Oaxacan gin.
That was awesome.
And one thing I really like about that, and I found like, because there's another one, there's like another company in California that does this, because most gin is made with neutral alcohol, and like because traditionally, like it's all about the botanicals. But I'm finding that there are some like craft gins that are using basically moonshine, but like corn liquor, like bourbon before it's aged in wood, that kind of thing, and like pot stilled liquor. And so like that by itself just kind of gives it all like this really nice kind of body and sort of background. And I like those a lot. And that Oaxacan gin is like that. It's made with corn liquor.
Are you the one that told me to get Botanist?
Yeah.
Okay, because I like that stuff quite a bit.
Yeah, Botanist is really, really good.
Gin is my favorite alcohol. And because I bought all of the gin. I went through a gin journey where I bought everything that the liquor store had, one bottle at a time. And like honestly, so if you're wanting to mix, Bombay Sapphire is great. It hides the best in a gin and tonic. Like I really like. It's not very high shelf stuff. I like Tanqueray. I'm not very highbrow. But that Botanist stuff is probably my favorite. And Ryan Reynolds Aviation Gin isn't that bad.
The thing I find with gin also is like, because gin's the hardest thing to predict. It's hard to predict what people will like and won't like, and it's hard to predict how to play with other flavors. Like one gin might make a really excellent martini and then a really terrible tonic, because there's just so many flavors going on. And I really suspect with gin and vermouth too, like a lot of those things, I suspect that there might be a thing going on that's like related to like the cilantro thing, or like me with the sucralose thing. When some people are like, "Oh, I hate that gin. How can you drink that crap?" I kind of wonder because like there's like some of those gins have 25 different plants added to them, And sometimes I wonder if like there's something like that going on where somebody's like, "Ooh, I just hate that," and other people are like, "What are you talking about? It's lovely and flowery and nice." But yeah, because like gin is good. I like gin. I just don't drink a lot of it because I don't know. It's for me, gin is more about mixing. You know, unless I can get my hands
Yeah,
on more of that
that's-
Oaxacan gin. But I saw like that.
That
I got
stuff
a
is
picture.
awesome. No,
Yeah,
but
like that
like
stuff
gin's
is
one of
made
the
on
only
a
things I drink
still.
plain.
Yeah, that gin is made in like a kitchen-sized operation. I don't know if
Really?
I'll ever see more of that again. I still have some. I still have a lot. I don't drink it fast. I'm saving it just because I like it so
Yeah,
much.
no, I don't blame you. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yusuf says gin is the IPA of the liquor world. Troy says sangria equals wine
What?
plus fruit plus brandy plus cinnamon plus whatever juicy stuff you want. Do
Yeah.
you like sangria, Troy?
Apparently, no, he knows what it is. Yeah. But I think like I made a white sangria once with like, you know, nice New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, 'cause that's already kind of grapefruity. But we made it with like kiwi and mango, and you know we used some white rum instead of brandy, and that was really good. You know, got it cold. Risto, if you like piney things, you might like Retsina. Even Greeks don't like Retsina, but that's just wine that's flavored with pine resin.
Mmm.
It sounds better than it is. Apparently,
I don't
like
know.
it's.
I like
I mean,
gin. Gin is
well,
piney.
I don't know. So the only Retsina that the state carries is also just cheap. I kind of wonder like if there's like a fancy version, but part of me is like I don't think it really comes in fancy. I did have a Portuguese, like a cheap Portuguese red wine that was done in the like ancient Roman style, where it's amphora sealed with pine resin, and that was actually really, really good. But Retsina, like my understanding with Retsina is that like for Greek gatherings, it kind of has the same role as like fruit cake for waspy gatherings, you know,
Have
where
you
like
watched,
everybody brings a fruit cake, but nobody eats any of it. And like I think the Greeks are the same way about Retsina.
Have you watched any Shogun?
No, is it good?
I watched the first 2 episodes. I like it so far. I was a little bit. I was kind of bummed out because like they were really diligent about speaking the language, right? So
Oh.
it's when Japanese characters are talking to each other, they only speak Japanese. Which is
What's it
pretty
on
cool.
Netflix?
Oh, I don't know.
Which
It's
Flix is it on?
FX, so probably
Oh,
Hulu.
Would
But
that be on Hulu?
FX things are usually on Hulu, I think. But I was excited because they said they like the Spaniard guy said, "Well, I can talk to some of these guys because I speak fluent Portuguese." I thought they were going to speak Portuguese, but it's just English and Japanese.
Oh.
So anytime the characters are actually speaking Portuguese, it's just English.
That's too bad.
That was one of the actually one of the weird parts about when I was watching. I think I explained it one of these times. I was watching Vinland Saga, and that's Vikings, and sometimes the Vikings are fighting the French, right? And so obviously it's an anime, so it's all in Japanese. There's not a dub out, and when the French speak French and the Vikings speak Norse, they're both speaking Japanese, but there'll be an interpreter there. And so you can hear the guy saying like how can we come to a treaty in Japanese, and then the interpreter repeating the same exact thing in Japanese so that the French guy can hear it. And so it's all Japanese, but you're just supposed to kind of in your head think that, oh, those guys are speaking Norse and those guys are speaking guys are speaking French. And there's a certain amount of that in a lot of shows, because usually in like shows where they have different languages, the one of the things I've noticed like in Vikings that they'll do is they'll speak different languages, but then once like 2 people who speak the same language are in the same room and that's all they're speaking, they'll just speak English, no matter what language it is.
I think I mean it doesn't work for serious shows, but Allo Allo, did you ever watch that show? Allo Allo was a terrible British comedy from like the early 80s, and I mean I love it, but it's so dumb. But it's the whole setting is that it's a cafe in occupied France during World War II. And so it's all English actors, and the way they solve the language is like there's Germans and there's the French and there's the Italians and there's the English, of course, and all this stuff. And the way they solve the accent things is that everybody just does a bad theatrical accent of the language they're doing, and then so you know there's scenes where like there's the French resistance fighter where like you know she's translating from French into English, and so she's going like the guy will say like, well, tell them they have to get into the vat of wine, and she'll be like, right, oh chaps, you just got to bobby into this vat, and that's just how they. And it's brilliant because like it was.
What's the name of that show again? You've told me about it before.
Hello. It's
It's
funny.
old school.
It's cheesy bad, but it's kind of glorious. There's a lot of wonderful. It's made by the same guys who did Are You Being Served? So if you've seen Are You Being Served, it's the exact same level of humor as that show.
Well, that's worth watching.
Yeah.
I haven't watched anything good this week, but I got the new Contra video game. Kind of like the old Contra.
Is it good?
They did a Contra. Nah. I mean, it's just Contra. I mean, it's not that great. But look at this. Look at what Bill. I just saw this. Bill Reel just put this on the Facebooks. The person in the Book of Mormon Central's videos, A Marvelous Work, is an actor whose stage name is Scott Christopher, who is actually Scott Claflin. Using a pseudonym is one thing. Getting paid to act out your testimony is another. In fact, using his actor name to act for a religious video in which he is paid to act as a believer, regardless if he is one, is strange. It seems he should have been Scott Claflin in the videos then. Scott Claflin was paid by Book of Mormon Central to act using the actor's name Scott Christopher. Scott Claflin, the believer, is one thing. Scott Christopher, the paid actor acting his testimony, seems like an unethical thing to do in the name. Like he keeps harping on these very
actor for using
things.
a pseudonym?
He keeps harping on these various tedious things and going after these channels like they're being extremely unethical in these.
Wait.
He's been on a rampage for several different things. He was upset about that one elder using the word elder on his as a advertisement for a convention, like a political convention. And then he's telling them that they need to ethically remove their videos where the Hebrew scholar says that there's some good Hebrew stuff in the Book of Mormon. And it's all just like, why are you getting legalistic about it or going up and I don't know. It all just seems kind of like tedious goofiness to me. But
Okay, so actors who use pseudonyms.
That's weird.
Like they all use pseudonyms, right?
I just get weirded out. I mean, that he's just like doing these big bombastic like displays of, look, I've caught you in your unethical dilemma. But whatever, dude.
Wait, how's that unethical?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like that's just a thing that actors do.
That's a low key theme of this whole entire thing of like with ex-Mormons is like, why do we all got to spaz out about all the little things, man?
I don't care if Tom Cruise's name isn't really Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. Vin Diesel's name is not Vin Diesel. And when you hear his real name, you're like, yeah, I get it. His name's like Frank Edwards or some shit like that. And Vin Diesel sounds a lot cooler. So I'm not going to get mad at you for that.
Engelbert Humperdinck. Because
I want to know what it is.
What's his name? It's Jerry Dorsey. The real name of Engelbert Humperdinck is Jerry Dorsey.
Oh, really?
Because what's his name?
Mark Sinclair. That's Vin Diesel's real name.
Oh, Mark
really?
Sinclair. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's not
Eddie Izzard.
That's not that bad of a
Eddie Izzard has a whole bit about Engelbert Humperdinck.
What's Eddie Izzard's real name? That's not his real name, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't know. Actually, it might be.
Let's see.
What you gonna do? What you gonna
do? Edward Izzard.
Edward John Izzard. Yeah.
Huh. You see, like, did you guys watch the Oscars? Did you catch all the Oscars? I mean, I guess I didn't watch them because the Oscars are so important. I didn't catch any of the Oscars, but I heard some stuff about this movie, Poor Things, that's out. And I guess the whole thing about Poor Things is that it's supposedly super, super, super sexual. Emma, what's her name? Stone, doing all sorts of sexual positions. But in the show, she's ostensibly has the mind of a young child.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I've heard all
my
stuff
boss,
about, like,
my boss saw it. He
like,
said it was a good movie, but he said something about like it's kind of weird because like that's all I did. Like she's like an idiot on her first day in life.
I see a lot of people, normies and even some leftists, kind of saying this kind of seems a bit pedo-y to me if you really think about it.
That's weird.
Yeah, messed up. Anyway, that's all the weirdness in the world. Now we're gonna have a normal week. That's my challenge to you,
sure we
world. Give us nothing to talk about for 1 week.
It'll be
please.
normal now.
Don't nothing stupid this week, world. Please. Please.
No more stupid.
You can do it. This will be the
All
1
right.
week ever. St. Patrick's Day
Alrighty.
week 2024. Nothing stupid. All right. Thanks for chilling, everybody. Thanks for chilling, everybody on the chat. And we'll catch y'all later.
Hell yeah. See ya.